Chapter 79. When she saw that her father didn't win the prize, Shishi's discomfort was written all over her face. Although the first prize dog plushie sent by the young vendor was a bit interesting, in the eyes of Shishi, who wanted a big bear cub, nothing could compare to her big bear cub. Yang Yi understood his daughter's thoughts, so he didn't hesitate and directly asked for the next round of challenges. The onlookers, on the other hand, were kind-hearted and tried to persuade him. The first prize is not bad. Why are you so stubborn? It's very difficult to hit 10 darts. 10 yuan each time, 10 yuan each time. After a few times, it's enough to buy one. This scammer, if he really hit 10 darts, I don't think the boss would be willing to give it to him. When the young man heard this, he was really unwilling. He straightened his neck and said to the onlookers, "Why wouldn't he be willing to give it to him? If this boss hits 10 darts, of course, we will give him the special prize with both hands. Don't think that our first prize is cheap. This boss took our first prize for 10 yuan. We lost a lot," the young man said with some grievance. Of course, this was also an act. Although Yang Yi lost a little by winning the first prize, he still made a profit overall. After all, most people threw darts like Hanzo's arrows. Whether they hit or not depended on fate. Moreover, even though Yang Yi had won the first prize, they had gained a lot of popularity. There were still quite a few people who were itching to join in the fun. Some of them could not wait to pay up and line up to play in person. These were all future benefits. However, the discussion of the onlookers worried Shishi. The little girl pulled on her father's trouser leg. When her father squatted down and asked why, she pouted and whispered, "I want a big bear cub." The little girl looked so wrong that Yang Yi's heart was about to melt. He smiled and patted Shishi's little shoulder and said, "Don't worry, watch Dad." Yang Yi took the 12 darts from the young man. He picked up one first, weighed it gently, and touched the tail. "Pfft, it's quite decent." Someone next to them laughed out loud. "Don't be noisy, I'm so nervous." The person just now was slapped on the head by his companion. His companion looked nervously at Yang Yi, as if it wasn't Yang Yi throwing, but him. Of course, Yang Yi was not affected by the discussions around him. He calmed down and felt the weight of the dart. Then, he suddenly shook his wrist and threw the dart out. This time, his movement was not big, but he was good at using his strength. Bang! What a pleasant explosion! The dart pierced the balloon and stuck on the foam board. Wow! The onlookers cried out in surprise, and the cheers were endless. Sisi was actually a little afraid of the sound of balloons exploding. She covered her ears with her 2 little hands, but when she saw this scene, the little girl's eyes turned into 2 sweet crescent moons. Yang Yi's expression was very calm, as if he was wearing earplugs. He was unmoved. He picked up the second dart, felt the weight of the dart just like before, and then lowered his shoulder and shook his wrist. Pang! Another balloon exploded. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. It was unknown when it started, but the audience had already started counting down loudly for Yang Yi. This accuracy was like shooting a willow leaf from 100 paces away, making them all Yang Yi's fans. There were more and more curious onlookers, and the young people at the stall didn't have time to worry about whether Yang Yi would take away their big prize. They even started to introduce some customers who wanted to play, and asked them to line up for money. They couldn't stop smiling. When Yang Yi threw the third last dart, and there were still 2 more in his hand, the onlookers finally saw the result they wanted to see. Yeah. They all cheered, as if it wasn't Yang Yi who had won the special prize, but them. Special prize, special prize, special prize. Nobody knew who took the lead, but they all shouted in unison. It was so lively and happy. Shishi was the same. Her little face was red, and she was so excited that she waved her little fists. She was so affected by the atmosphere that she forgot that she was a little lady. The young man at the stall didn't have any reluctance at this time. He also wanted to strike while the iron was hot, so he proudly held the special prize, a panda doll that was half the height of a person. Then, like a referee in a boxing ring, he raised one of Yang Yi's hands. "Let us congratulate this challenger. He has won our special, first prize. The young man shout one more cheers and more onlookers. Yang Yi didn't care. He still looked calm and collected. On the other hand, Shishi looked at the big bear cub, eagerly and couldn't help but jump in joy. The young man also took the opportunity to promote his game. Here, 5 yuan. Don't worry about losing the special prize. Also, our people are running back to get it now. As long as you dare to win, we dare to give it to you. There is no upper limit for the special prize. After saying that, he suddenly remembered something. He turned to Yang Yi a little nervously and whispered, "Brother, look, your daughter has already gotten what she wants. She won't play any more, right?" Yang Yi was amused. He raised his right hand, and there were 2 remaining darts between his fingers. Suddenly, he shook his hand, and the 2 darts were thrown out. They hit the 2 balloons at the edge of the foam board. This dazzling skill once again set off the exclamations of the onlookers. However, Yang Yi didn't have any intention of showing off. It was just a small scene. Yang Yi held the panda doll in one hand and held his daughter's hand with the other. He smiled calmly at the stunned young man. "Don't worry, we are going to play something else." Yang Yi left after winning the panda doll for his daughter. It was as if he was going to leave when the matter was done. He left a lot of popularity for the dart stall that he had casually cleared. She didn't want to sit on her father's neck and watch the show. She was so happy that she held her father's hand. She walked with a spring in her step. From time to time, she would go around and touch the panda doll. Then, she would smile happily and go back to her father's right side. There is cotton candy. Do you want to eat cotton candy?" Yang Yi was actually going to take his daughter back, but he happened to see a vendor selling cotton candy. He became interested. "What's cotton candy?" She curiously followed her father. She looked at the cloud-like thing and was a little surprised. "Is this edible?" "Of course it is." Yang Yi smiled. He held the panda doll in his right arm and held his daughter's hand tightly. Then he took out some money with his left hand. "Boss, give me a cotton candy." "Okay." At this time, the female boss with the big straw hat looked up. Yang Yi was stunned. She looked very familiar. Chapter 80. P.S. None of you guessed it right. Who said that she was a florist? Be reasonable. Don't treat every female character as the female lead. Murphy is the only female lead. Oh right, she is also the female lead. Don't treat your daughter as the female lead, haha. It was a tanned and skinny girl. She looked a little immature, but she did things very quickly. She was even skilled at rolling the cotton candy. However, Yang Yi had seen this girl before. Please wait for a moment. The girl hadn't recognized him yet. She took Yang Yi's money and nodded politely at him and the little girl who had popped her head out of the panda plushie. Yang Yi was very curious. When the girl was almost done rolling the cotton candy, he finally couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you a student from Jiangqing Media University?" Of course, this question wasn't out of the blue. The girl was still wearing the Jiangqing Media University uniform. "Yes. You recognized me?" The girl admitted openly. She finished rolling the cotton candy and handed it over with a sincere smile. "This is an extra large cotton candy. Your daughter can eat more. I hope the little girl will like it." She shyly hid behind and only popped her head out. Of course, seeing the little girl smile, she also shyly responded with a shy smile. "Thank you, big sister." Her voice was still very soft, but the girl still heard it. She smiled and said, "You're welcome. This is a gift from big sister." Yang Yi didn't care. He was curious about why the girl was in the cotton candy business. Last month, she and I were looking at the sea of flowers in Luoxia village. We were having a picnic in the forest at noon when we met you. Yang Yi saw that the girl couldn't remember, so he reminded her. This time, the girl really remembered. Her memory wasn't bad. She smiled brightly. "I remember now. So it was you. Your daughter was still resting at that time." I'm sorry to disturb you. You still remember? Of course. You even brought a lot of tools. This is the first time I've seen something like this when I was there as a volunteer. How can tourists be so well equipped? The girl smiled, revealing her white teeth. After pulling the cotton candy, it looked like a pure white cloud. However, Yang Yi, who liked to eat it while it was hot, did not care about destroying this beauty. He first tore a small ball of cotton candy and stuffed it into his mouth. It was very soft and melted in his mouth. A sweet and fragrant feeling filled his taste buds, leaving him with an endless aftertaste. Is it good? She watched curiously from the side. When she saw her father's satisfied expression, she couldn't help but say, "Papa, I want to eat too." She had eaten until her stomach was bloated, but she still couldn't resist her appetite. Yang Yi naturally wouldn't mistreat his daughter. He held the stick in his left hand and extended the cotton candy over. She couldn't wait to imitate her father's actions and wanted to try. You don't have to do it. You can eat it yourself. Yang Yi quickly said. The little girl's hands had already been covered with a lot of bacteria from grabbing here and there. Of course, Yang Yi himself was not clean, but his immune system was very strong, unlike Shi who was prone to diarrhea. The cotton candy seemed to have turned into glass fiber sugar. When it was eaten, it melted into syrup more easily than ordinary candy. Shi immediately realized this sweet taste. She was so happy that her eyes narrowed. However, she didn't have time to express her feelings and kept eating. Aren't you at school? Why did you come to the temple fair to sell cotton candy? Yang Yi then asked the girl. This was his biggest doubt. Originally, when Yang Yi saw the girl in front of him for the second time, he was still a little vigilant. He subconsciously thought that there was danger and wanted to leave the things and run away with Shi. Fortunately, he quickly realized that this was no longer the life of a fugitive in his previous life where he had to live in fear at all times. In the peaceful world of ordinary people, he had the identity of an ordinary person and was an ordinary stay-at-home dad. Who would be so bored as to want to deal with him? However, he was still used to the situation of this girl and wanted to know more about it. The girl was stunned for a moment. She didn't hide anything and openly talked about her situation. Ding Xiang was the girl's name, which also implied her origin. She was a Miao girl from the mountains of Xiang province. Xiang Meizi was indeed a very ordinary girl. She was a second-year student majoring in electronic media at Jiangqing Media University. Her background was clean, and at the same time, her family was poor. During the school holidays, I will participate in some work-study activities outside of school to earn some living expenses. Ding Xiang's tan skin revealed the shyness of a young girl. She said embarrassedly, just like the volunteer I saw the last time, he was actually paid. 2 months ago, Ding Xiang was dragged to the temple fair by her roommates. Then, she had the idea of setting up a stall at the fair. Last month, Ding Xiang gritted her teeth and bought some gadgets to sell. In the end, the business was good. The temple fair was indeed very popular and helped her earn half a month's living expenses. This time, Ding Xiang happened to find out from a lady who used to set up a stall that an old granny couldn't set up a stall because of her poor health. Therefore, Ding Xiang rented the old granny's cotton candy machine and sold cotton candy herself. This business was much more popular than buying gadgets. Moreover, cotton candy was simple and easy to make. Ding Xiang was kind-hearted and always made large amounts of cotton candy for her customers. Naturally, it attracted many people to buy it. I earned some for myself and I can give a portion to the old granny. She is so pitiful. The children at home don't take care of her and she can only rely on her own small business to make a living. Ding Xiang smiled. Her white teeth were in sharp contrast to her dark skin. Yang Yi nodded silently. He couldn't understand Ding Xiang's poverty and difficulties. After all, Yang Yi felt that all difficulties needed to be broken by oneself. All wealth and happiness needed to be fought for by oneself. He could appreciate Ding Xiang's hard-working attitude, but it was difficult for him to be moved by it. After getting the information he wanted, Yang Yi didn't stay for too long. After saying goodbye to Ding Xiang, he left with Shi. As for why he didn't give Ding Xiang some financial support? Please, Yang Yi wasn't a Virgin Mary who wanted to give money to a poor person. This wasn't Yang Yi's character. Moreover, from Yang Yi's point of view, this world was survival of the fittest. If one wanted to be above others, one had to put in 100 times the effort and not wait for others to support them. In Yang Yi's previous life, if he didn't rely on himself to fight his way out and relied on others to save him, he wouldn't have made it out of the training camp alive. Ding Xiang was a kind-hearted girl who didn't feel inferior and worked hard. Yang Yi felt that such a child would have a bright future. As for other things, he didn't have any other thoughts. Let her be tempered by suffering. Chapter 81. When Yang Yi took Cici to visit the temple fair, the scandal between Mo Fei and Zhu Jie quietly subsided. After all, Zhu Jie's reputation was too bad, and Mo Fei was unwilling to cooperate with him. Therefore, several media outlets were stirring things up, as if they were clowns dancing, and the attention on them had decreased a lot. In addition, a more shocking thing happened in the entertainment industry not long ago. With almost no warm-up, Harbor City star Chen Yijie's new album, Long Time Not Seen, which he had been working on for 2 years, was released. However, under such circumstances, the sales of Long Time Not Seen in the first 2 days were jaw-dropping, breaking the number of 1 million. One must know that the market for Cantonese songs itself was limited, and it didn't have a huge audience like Mandarin. The Copyright Association set the standard for a Cantonese album's platinum album at 5 million copies. Obviously, with the current momentum, it was only a matter of time before Long Time Not Seen got the honor of a platinum album. Moreover, whether it was the industry or Chen Yijie's fans, almost all of them had the highest praise for this album. The good reputation was hyped up, and it naturally had a great impact on the sales of this album. Interestingly, because the album Long Time Not Seen was full of Cantonese songs, the second title song of the same name was a Mandarin version, so the Mandarin entertainment industry also paid attention to this news. Soon, they found that the Mandarin song Long Time Not Seen was surprisingly good. As a result, in the vast Mandarin market, this song also began to spread. Although many people could only pay to download it through the internet, the popularity of this song had become a phenomenon. Who is Mu Xiang? More record companies and agencies responded quickly and cast their eyes on the 2 songwriters of the title song with different lyrics. However, because the Copyright Association's information was set to be unreadable by the author, those who were interested all ran into a wall. Of course, the popularity of Chen Yijie's new album was not good for Murphy. Although she bought the album to appreciate and learn, Murphy herself had to admit that the current level of attention she received had been affected, and this impact was reflected in the album sales. Murphy didn't care. Instead, she was very happy. She felt that the previous sales were too fake. She wanted real results, even if the results were very bad and would make her sad. However, she felt more relaxed than deliberately using scandals to cheat sales. After the deadline with Sister Ling, Murphy immediately asked Mo Xiaowan to meet with a familiar reporter and officially clarified to the public, "I, Murphy, am still single. Zhu Jie and I are just ordinary colleagues." The photos that were circulated before looked intimate because of the angle, but that's not the case. This clarification was very much like Murphy's style. Regardless of whether people would approve of it, after it was released, it didn't cause much of a stir. The fans that had been lost due to the previous scandals were also difficult to recover. The sales of her album, which had exploded due to the scandals in the beginning, had once again slowed down and declined. Finally, Murphy's last album sales week has passed. Although her album can still be sold, it now depends on the mood of the owners of the major stores and music stores. In some ways, the sales of records in this world were a bit like the release of a movie. The Copyright Association explicitly required all sales channels to reserve the first few rows of shelves for records released within a month. Of course, whether it sold well or not and whether it was placed at the front depended on one's ability. To a certain extent, this protected the rights and interests of various creators, but it also made the competition in the record market more intense. Unless it was a boss who relied on feelings to support it, market factors often determined the retention of outdated records in their stores. Once this month was over, Without the support of the Copyright Association's mandatory shelving month, records that didn't sell well would often be removed or left in an inconspicuous corner to eat dust. Obviously, Murphy's new album wasn't so good that it could still be retained after a month, especially in the very competitive entertainment industry of this world. According to the feedback from the company's marketing department, after the time point, Murphy's album sales began to decline in a precipitous manner from the next day onwards, with only a 2-digit daily increase. With such results, Murphy's blow was not only from the outside world cynicism, but she could also clearly feel the change in the attitude of the other people in the agency towards her. There was less respect and praise from before, and more alienation and contempt. Mo Xiaowan felt it even more deeply. She had just gone to the bathroom and rushed back angrily, saying, "What kind of people are they? Snobbish. They used to call me Sister Wan so sweetly, but now, when we meet in the bathroom, they don't even want to say hello. They even rolled their eyes and spoke in a strange voice." Mo Xiaowan didn't want to tell Murphy that those people had said those unpleasant words, such as disdaining Murphy as a faded flower, saying that Murphy occupied the company's biggest resources and blocked the development path of the small female stars they followed. These words were infuriating, and Mo Xiaowan didn't want Murphy to be in a bad mood after hearing them. "Forget it, we'll come back for the next album." Murphy put down the book in her hand and comforted her assistant cousin. "Actually, other people's criticism isn't without reason. I was too anxious to make a comeback and didn't choose a good song." Murphy began to reflect on herself. "Next time, I'd rather spend more time and have Sister Ling help me collect songs, choose good songs, and then polish them over and over again. I'm sure I'll be able to grind out a record that will satisfy the fans." Mo Xiaowan faintly sighed and said, "Sister, you make it sound simple, but how many years will this grind take? Your contract with Sister Ling is about to expire at this time next year. Not to mention anything else, it's hard to say if Sister Ling is willing to sign a contract with us. It's not a contract, but a lot of things will be restricted in the future." There were some words that Mo Xiaowan didn't say out loud. She felt that the company wouldn't continue to invest a lot of resources in collecting songs for Murphy. Without good songs, it would be useless no matter how long they grind. "What's more, what do we do during this time? Don't we have to eat? Just shut ourselves in the recording studio and practice?" Mo Xiaowan said with a headache. "The entertainment industry is very cruel, and the economic contracts are the same. If Murphy earns money, the management company will split a lot of it with her. If she doesn't earn money, the management company won't give them a single cent to spend. Then I'll tell Sister Ling that I'll take on a few more commercial performances every month." Murphy was a little unwilling, but still said stubbornly, Sister, why are you working so hard?" Mo Xiaowan couldn't help but ridicule. "Yes, why?" Murphy obviously wasn't doing it for money, nor was it for fame. Otherwise, she wouldn't have retired for She. She also wouldn't have risked defending the TV station and rushed back to Zhongqing from Shanghai for She. But she longed for this stage, longed for the state of singing for her fans on the concert stage. She liked singing and didn't want to give up so easily. "Right. I can't give up." Murphy thought for a long time. Her conviction was once again firm. She said to Mo Xiaowan, "Xiaowan, it's already very late. You should go back first. I'll listen to a few more songs to get the feeling." Mo Xiaowan didn't move. She sat in her seat and stared blankly at the computer. "What's wrong, Xiaowan?" Murphy was curious and walked over. "Sister." Mo Xiaojuan's voice trembled with excitement. She pointed at the email page and asked, This name, Muzi Ong, where have I seen it before?" Chapter 82. Muzi Ong. Murphy, who was still in a daze, walked over and looked at the email. Mo Xiaowan was Murphy's assistant and manager. Of course, she didn't just accompany Murphy everywhere and clean up after her. Other than the work arranged by the company, she also had to deal with many businessmen who were attracted by Murphy's fame. Then, she had to arrange Murphy's daily schedule. Not only that, Mo Xiaowan also had to help Murphy deal with her fans. It could be said that Mo Xiaowan didn't have as much free time as Murphy. In fact, she was even busier. For example, the email that Mo Xiaowan was using now was specially used to discuss collaborations. However, occasionally, fans would find this email and send some emails expressing their love for Murphy. From the title of the email that Murphy saw, it was very similar to this kind of email: to Murphy, a gift from an admirer. But since Mo Xiaowan brought it up in such a serious manner, Murphy read on curiously. The main text wasn't long. The general idea was that this fan was called Mu Ziang. He had admired Murphy for a long time and liked Murphy's singing very much. When he saw that Murphy's new album had suffered a setback, he felt indignant. He felt that it was because Murphy didn't choose her new songs well. Therefore, he offered 2 songs that he wrote for Murphy, hoping that she could pull herself together and make a comeback. Murphy understood that this wasn't an ordinary fan letter. This was a letter from a true fan. Murphy felt a burst of warmth in her heart. She felt that no matter how good this fan's songs were, she would definitely treat them seriously. Even if they weren't good, Murphy would definitely go to the recording studio to record a few tapes and send them to the fan to thank him for his concern and effort. However, when Mo Xiaowan saw Mo Fei's indifferent look, she became anxious instead. "Elder sister, can't you see it?" "Tell what?" "Mu Ziang." "Yeah, he's my fan. What's wrong?" Murphy was puzzled. Mo Xiaowan rolled her eyes. She helplessly pushed her chair away and stood up. She hurriedly walked over to Murphy's cabinet and took down an album. Murphy recognized it at a glance. Wasn't it Chen Yijie's new album, Long Time No See, that she had asked someone to help her buy a few days ago? However, Murphy was still a little confused and couldn't wrap her head around it. Mo Xiaowan took it and pointed to the first 2 songs. "Sister, who wrote these 2 songs?" Murphy did not have to look at it this time. She suddenly understood. Mu Ziang. No wonder this name sounded so familiar. So he wrote Long Time No See, and Might As Well Not See Each Other, for Chen Yijie. Murphy liked this album very much, especially these 2 songs. She had listened to the Cantonese song, Might As Well Not See Each Other, several times. Of course, Murphy could still speak Cantonese, because even though she grew up abroad, she had been developing in the mainland Chinese circle when she came back to China. But don't forget that Murphy's mother used to be a singer in Harbor City. "Yeah. Sister, Mu Ziang wrote songs for you." Mo Xiaowan was so excited that her whole body trembled. "He is also your fan." Murphy frowned. She was not as excited as Mo Xiaowan. She still said calmly, "He shouldn't be Mu Ziang, right? How can there be such a coincidence?" Of course, whether it was Mu Ziang or not, Murphy still asked Mo Xiaowan to download the music score and print it out with great interest. "Sister, do you want a demo?" Mo Xiaowan asked. Murphy hesitated for a moment and said, "You can download it, but don't give it to me first." In the music field, a demo meant a sample record, and a demo usually meant that the composer recorded his general idea and gave it to the record company or the singer as a reference, which was the prototype of the song. But the big record companies usually ignored these demos, because they were worried that it would affect the performance of the singers. Murphy had the same idea. As a professional singer who had been famous for a long time, she preferred to sing with her own ideas. Opening the music score, Murphy was stunned when she saw the title of the first song, First Dream. Looking at the lyrics below, Murphy was silent. "Sister, it's really written for you." Mo Xiaowan printed 2 copies and read the lyrics with great interest. She didn't know anything about music scores, so she exclaimed. Although Murphy didn't respond, her shocked and happy eyes had explained everything. Wasn't it written for her? If the dream didn't fall off the cliff, how would the persistent people have invisible wings? Weren't these lines about Murphy's current situation? Her dream had been thwarted and her wings were broken. Everyone was laughing at her, and they couldn't see her return and future. But Murphy still persisted on the path of her dream. Holding the first dream tightly in my hand, the place I wanted to go the most, how could I turn back halfway? The first dream will definitely be reached. Only when the true desire is realized can I be considered to have reached heaven. Murphy wanted to realize her music dream and continue to stand on the stage, because that was her heaven. Now, even if she couldn't return to the stage, Murphy didn't intend to give up. It's definitely Mu Ziyong. Mo Xiaowan felt that her judgment was right. She shouted, "Only Mu Ziyong, who wrote Long Time No See, can write such good lyrics." Murphy didn't say anything. She actually agreed with Mo Xiaojuan's statement, because she could feel the melody of the song from the process of reading the score. Even if the melody of the song was different from that of Long Time No See, Murphy believed that the composer who could write such a beautiful melody and lyrics that touched the depths of people's hearts had his own pride. How could he impersonate someone else's name? Before looking at the second song, Murphy couldn't wait to turn around and walk to her exclusive recording studio. She turned on the equipment inside and entered the score of The First Dream. The computer equipment would simulate the sound of the corresponding instruments and create the accompaniment. Of course, it couldn't be compared to playing the instruments, but it was enough for the time being. Murphy put on her headphones and closed her eyes. When the prelude was over, she hummed softly, "If pride wasn't coldly taken down by the real sea." No, it wasn't like that. It seemed like she should have added a few keys at the beginning. Murphy frowned, dragged the progress bar and started again. These were the struggles that one had to go through when recording a song. For every song to get the best feeling in the album, one had to be like Murphy in the beginning. One had to repeatedly consider each word and sentence and repeatedly modify one's singing style. This period was very boring, but just like Yang Yi's cooking, the delicacy had to wait. Of course, Murphy could have chosen the simple mode. If she listened to the demo recorded by Yang Yi, although she only hummed vaguely, she would know the basic singing style. But what was the point of that? Murphy wasn't fan. She had her own style and her own voice. Naturally, she would perform her own brilliance. Mo Xiaowan stood outside the recording studio and helplessly patted her forehead. "AI, are we going to pull an all-nighter again?" She knew Murphy's style. When she worked, she didn't differentiate between day and night. Mo Xiaowan, who was Mo Fei's assistant and cousin, had no choice but to give up the idea of going home to sleep. She took a bag and went out to buy supper for Mo Fei. The first song was The First Dream. Guess which song was the second? Chapter 83. In the early morning of the weekend, everything was quiet. Even the chirping cicadas seemed to have felt the deep sleepiness of the weekend and were silent. Pa, pa, pa. A lonely figure appeared in the long corridor. Mo Xiaowan walked over with big and small bags. Even if the people on duty were still sleeping, Mo Xiaowan was used to this kind of loneliness. She wasn't afraid when she walked through the dark stairs. Fortunately, there were still a few rays of the morning sun shining in from the corridor. Several potted plants quietly bloomed under the sunlight, adding a bit of vitality. Mo Xiaowan opened the door to Murphy's exclusive studio and tiptoed in. What greeted her eyes was a somewhat messy workbench and a sleeping beauty curled up on the folding bed behind it. Mo Xiaowan put down the breakfast in her hands, then looked at Murphy and sighed inwardly. This workaholic. It's been a few days and she still hasn't stopped? After Murphy got the two good songs, she was like a treasure in the recording studio every day. Fortunately, she didn't have any jobs recently, but there was a commercial performance. Mo Fei asked Mo Xiaowan to turn it down, and it was only after Mo Xiaowan persuaded her that Mo Fei was willing to postpone it. Murphy probably stayed up until the wee hours of the morning before sleeping. Mo Xiaojuan's movements didn't wake her up. Mo Xiaowan shook her head, picked up the blanket that Murphy dropped on the ground, and covered her with it. At this critical time, Murphy couldn't catch a cold. Otherwise, she would be even crazier if she couldn't sing. Mo Xiaowan tidied up Murphy's workbench, tidied up some of Murphy's notes, and pressed them with a silver paperweight. Then, she quietly walked to the recording studio next door. As a loyal fan of her cousin, Mo Xiaowan was very interested in the progress of Murphy's audition. She skillfully turned on the machine, then put on the monitoring headphones and listened to the recording left by Murphy with relish. If pride wasn't coldly smacked down by the reality of the sea, how would we know how hard we have to work to go far? Murphy sang this song, First Dream, very smoothly. Her unique ethereal voice brought out the helplessness and struggle of the song. This was different from the demo that Mo Xiaowan heard. Mo Fei's singing was indeed very good. Just like the lyrics of, "I can smell a kind of fragrance when I close my eyes when I'm tired," she was able to sing that kind of feeling of tiredness and laziness. It was very light, but as long as you listened carefully, you could feel it. However, don't think that this positive song was filled with negative energy because of Murphy's singing. Murphy sang the tiredness of the foreshadowing lyrics in the beginning, gradually transitioning to the lightness and excitement of the climax at the end. This transition didn't leave any trace at all. Mo Xiaowan, who was listening to the song, was also unknowingly infected by Murphy's emotions from the beginning. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, as if she saw the dawn of a dream come true. If Sister Fei used this song as the main title of her comeback album, the sales would definitely be more than what it is now. After listening to the song, Mo Xiaowan secretly sighed. In this cruel and competitive entertainment industry, it was extremely difficult to make a comeback. The new album that had just suffered a setback was originally Murphy's best chance to make a comeback. After all, she had the status before her retirement and also had a lot of nostalgic fans. Unfortunately, she didn't grasp this opportunity and released an album with very bad results, squandering her original popularity in an instant. How difficult would it be to start afresh with a new album in the future, to gather popularity from scratch? Not to mention the quality of the future album. Just talking about Murphy's opponents, they wouldn't sit back and watch Murphy's development. They would definitely stop and attack Murphy with all their strength like in the past few months. How could it be easy to break through? The first song ended in Mo Xiaojuan's imagination. She came back to her senses and clicked on the second song. Love Me Don't Go. This song was also sent to Murphy by Mu Xiang through email. At first, Mo Xiaowan felt that the quality of this song was not as good as the first song. Listening to the melody, she felt that it had a very strong Japanese, rhythm and blues, flavor. Mo Xiaowan didn't like this style of music, but Mo Xiaowan was very surprised by Murphy. Murphy, who rarely sang blues, actually showed a strong interest in this song. Before she could think too much, the music started and Murphy's voice came immediately. At this time, I'm still the same. The loneliness of the night makes people sad. I don't dare to think too much, because I'm alone. Japanese songs were very free, but the singing was also very unique. Although Murphy rarely sang this type of song, with her singing skills, she could still easily control it. That kind of psychedelic, gentle, lingering charm was sung by Murphy incisively and vividly. P.S. Although the original singer of this song was Zhang Yu, who plays hip-hop, the female version is also very good. Everyone can find Mo Wei's version to listen to. At the climax, Mo Xiaowan finally heard Murphy's passionate side. Love me don't go if you say you don't love me. I don't want to hear you really say it. Give me a little more gentleness. In this section, Murphy sang a little hysterically. It was different from the previous versions that Mo Xiaowan had heard. In the past, Murphy sang in a free and easy way, and also sang in a sad way. But it had never been like this, singing in such a helpless and sad way. Mo Xiaowan let out a heavy sigh. She understood what he meant. Murphy's song wasn't sung for Yang Yi, nor was it sung for some other man. Murphy was venting out the unspeakable urge to keep her fans who had left. The lyrics of this song were indeed very simple, unlike Mo Xiaojuan's favorite, Long Time No See, which lacked variety. The second section was just a simple repetition of the first section. At that time, she had complained to Murphy that this song, Mu Xiang, didn't write seriously enough, and didn't seem like his ability. However, what could be better than repetition to express one's emotions? The moonlight elongates my shadow, walking aimlessly on the cold street. I don't have news of you, because I miss you. Mo Fei did not stop as he did in the first section. Instead, he raised his voice and sang an impromptu blues song, transitioning the melody to the climax. Love me don't go, if you say you don't love me. At this time, Murphy's singing changed again. It wasn't as emotional as in the first section, but slowly sank from the high notes, singing with a heavy heart. "Love me don't go." Murphy sang until the end. Her tone was a little sad. This was very rare. In the past, she rarely expressed such emotions directly. At most, she hid it in a roundabout way, requiring the listener to carefully experience it. Perhaps, she really hoped that those fans who liked her would "love me don't go." Chapter 84. While Murphy was practicing her song diligently, Yang Yi was not idle. He did 3 big things in the past few days. The first thing was to reach a cooperation agreement with Fu Jun, the boss of Sahara Publishing House. Yang Yi would invest 5 million yuan and get 49% of the shares of Sahara Online Bookstore. Fu Jun refused at first. Although the project of running Sahara Online Bookstore was not very profitable, he treated it as his own private toy and didn't want others to touch it. But Sahara Publishing House needed the physical copyright of Yang Yi's 2 books, so Fu Jun still came. As a result, he was attracted by Yang Yi's top-notch Blue Mountain coffee and was also impressed by Yang Yi's advanced concept of online development. Fu Jun was the first person Yang Yi met who knew coffee and liked coffee, so he took out his treasured Blue Mountain coffee and shared it with Fu Jun. Fu Jun himself couldn't figure out whether it was the coffee or the philosophy that made him drunk. He decided to call Yang Yi his brother and sold 49% of his online bookstore shares for 5 million. Of course, Sahara Online Bookstore was not worth 10 million yuan now. It seemed that Yang Yi had become a fool, but Fu Jun couldn't help but mutter, "I'm the one who lost a lot. According to what you said, my online bookstore can develop into a giant. I will definitely regret selling so many shares to you for 5 million yuan. Yang Yi smiled and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Do it well and strive to make Sahara as big as I said. By then, you will be a giant in the publishing industry. Even if you lost a little, I will allow you to come to my shop to drink coffee in the future. I will make it for you personally. Blue Mountain, Luwak, cat poop coffee, Mand Helena, as long as I have it, you can drink it." Only then did Fu Jun leave with a smile on his face. Well, regarding the business part of the internet, Xiaohan will mention it briefly. These are just to make some money, so there is no need to describe it in detail. Everyone probably doesn't want to see the business war. The remaining 2 big things Yang Yi did were related to rejection. He rejected the olive branch thrown by Tianxiang Records. Speaking of the size of the company, Tianxiang Records was still a little shabby in Hong Kong, where every inch of land was worth gold. But in terms of scale and power, Tianxiang Records was not an existence that Murphy's Tianmei Entertainment could look up to. Although the producer of Chan Yijie's new album and the deputy music director of Tianxiang, Mao Su, had recommended Yang Yi to Hu Yongxiang as an excellent songwriter, Hu Yongxiang was really forgetful and forgot about it when he got busy. It wasn't until Chan Yijie's new album was released and its results were dazzling in Hong Kong that Hu Yongxiang thought of Yang Yi, a young man who was highly recommended by his father. But to everyone's surprise, in the face of Tianxiang's olive branch, Yang Yi nonchalantly rejected it. "Help? Could it be that you've already accepted other companies' offers?" Mao Su personally came to Jiangqing to meet Yang Yi because he wanted to become colleagues with Yang Yi and then discuss the true meaning of music together. But he didn't expect to be rejected. He was very surprised. "No, it's just that I prefer freedom and don't like to be restrained." Yang Yi smiled faintly. "If there's a chance, we can continue to work together, but not in the way of signing songwriters. I like to write my own music, not the music you want." As a musician, Mao Su could understand Yang Yi's idea very well. He nodded with some regret. "By the way, please keep my personal information confidential. I don't want my life to be disturbed." Yang Yi added. Mao Su smiled. "Of course we, Tianxiang, are not so tasteless. Besides, we don't want you to be targeted by our competitors. You're such an excellent songwriter, we'll have many opportunities to work together in the future." This rejection was a result that both sides could accept. However, the rejection of the third major matter was a little unpleasant. Previously, it was mentioned that the editors of Taijun.com wanted to poach Yang Yi to regain their lost popularity. They instructed a familiar publishing house to inquire about him. At that time, the people from the publishing house also came with manager Huang of Chi Yu. Of course, they were also rejected. However, the editors of Taijun Com got hold of Yang Yi's address. So, Ling Yunju brought Fishball and rushed over excitedly. He wanted to use his silver tongue to persuade Yang Yi to join Taijun Com. Yang Yi, you used to be a soldier, right? Me too. One look and I can tell that we have a special interest in military literature. Ling Yunju played the emotional card. Although Yang Yi received them in a friendly manner, he said that he had a 3-year contract with Chi Yu. It's okay. Ling Yunju patted his bald head and said enthusiastically, Taijun Com has a strong background. Have you heard of army literature? As long as you're willing, we can recruit you under the name of the army. Who would dare to stop us? Ling Yunju did not know that his words made Yang Yi unhappy. One had to know that Yang Yi was most disgusted by people who talked about their background. Moreover, the reason why his predecessor had retired was that he had offended someone with a strong background. Although it had nothing to do with the current Yang Yi, it was still a living memory in his mind. Yang Yi could empathize with it. No need. Chi Yu's offer is not bad. Yang Yi's voice became a little cold. However, Ling Yunju and Fishball did not feel it. Fishball even shouted, Chi Yu is nothing. Is it comparable to Taijun Com in terms of military literature? If you join Taijun Com, I guarantee that your results will be much better than Chi Yu's. Yang Yi did not deny this. After all, Taijun Com was the real gathering place of military fans. However, the problem was that even if the editors of Taijun Com did not make Yang Yi feel disgusted, he would not be willing to join Taijun Com. This was because Yang Yi did not like military literature. Since he did not like it, why would he change to another website to continue writing military literature? Military literature was just something that Yang Yi used to pass time. He had already thought of what to write for his next book. Moreover, it was definitely not going to be military literature. Of course, Yang Yi would not tell Ling Yunju and Fishball this. He only shook his head and looked at the clock in the cafe. He said calmly, Sorry, it's almost time. I have to prepare dinner for my daughter. This meant that he was sending them off. Ling Yunju did not look happy. As the deputy editor of Taijun Com, he had never been treated like this. You will regret it. Ling Yunju said angrily and left with Fishball. Fishball followed behind Ling Yunju and got into a taxi. However, he was young and impetuous. He could not help but ask, CEO Ling, are we just going to let it go? Are we just going to let them read and suppress us? Ling Yunju's face was gloomy. He said coldly, Let it go? How is that possible? Fishball, go back and keep an eye on his physical publishing progress. Also, isn't Drawing Sword nearing its finale? Check when his new book will be released. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. He will definitely regret this. Chapter 85. Last week, the second title song of Chen Yijie's new album, Long Time No See, became popular in China. Yang Yi's shop, which was named the coffee shop on the street corner, received the attention of some students and spread among the student body. Although they felt that it was more likely to be a coincidence, there were always some students who came to East Gate to drink coffee. They even forced Yang Yi to play the song again and again. It made Yang Yi want to vomit. Because of this coincidence, Yang Yi's coffee shop had an unexpected increase in popularity last week. It went from a situation where there were at most 3 or 4 customers a day to a situation where there was almost no shortage of customers in the afternoon. Although it was still not a lot, only about 20 customers a day, at least it looked like there was hope for a return. Unfortunately, the good times did not last long. In the blink of an eye, it was July. Zhongqing Media University was also on holiday. The students gradually left the university. Yang Yi's coffee shop became deserted again. However, Yang Yi was still very happy. He liked this half-dead state. It allowed him to read books and listen to music. Why don't I close the shop and take a few days off? Yang Yi had such an idea. Actually, he had only opened the shop for a few days. He would close the shop from time to time and take his daughter out to play. A boss like him would lose money no matter what he did. The good news was that Shi, who had gone home to stay with her mother for a few days, was finally back. Murphy also followed Shi to Yang Yi's house for dinner. She, who was a little tired and confused before, found her confidence again. The cold, arrogant girl in sunglasses appeared in front of Yang Yi again. However, this time, she came with her luggage. Recently, I've been a little tired from practicing songs. Xiaowan asked me to take a break and come out for a walk. Murphy no longer had to maintain a cold look in front of Yang Yi. Although her expression was still a little cold, her voice was very soft. I don't know where I can go, and I'm afraid of being photographed by reporters. Can I just stay at your house for 2 days? Is that okay? Yang Yi didn't need to ask to know that his 2 songs had worked. Previously, he had received a thank you email from Mo Fei. He didn't know if it was written by Mo Fei or Mo Xiaowan. Of course. Yang Yi smiled and reached out his hand. Murphy understood and handed the luggage in her hand to Yang Yi. Then, she held her daughter's hand and followed Yang Yi upstairs. Mom, are you going to live with Papa like Shi? Shi was very excited. This was the scene she had been looking forward to. She couldn't help but jump up the stairs. She didn't walk properly. She had to jump up every time to go up the stairs. Yeah, but it's only for 2 days, Murphy said faintly. Mom still has work, so she has to go back in 2 days. Okay then. She was still very happy. She tilted her head and said innocently, Then tonight, will Papa and Mom sleep with Shi? This question, Yang Yi, who was carrying the luggage, couldn't help but stiffen for a moment. Murphy's cold and elegant face couldn't help but blush. She secretly glanced at Yang Yi's back and waist, and her tone was no longer calm. She said reproachfully, Shi, what nonsense are you talking about? Tonight, you sleep with Mom. Your Papa will sleep alone. Murphy raised her voice so that Yang Yi could also hear it. Ahem, yes, there are still many rooms upstairs. Papa will tidy them up later. There's no need to worry about not having a room to sleep. Yang Yi walked to the corner of the stairs. He glanced at Murphy awkwardly and then said to Shi, Is that so? She pouted her small mouth and said unhappily, But Shi wants Papa and Mom to accompany me. However, Yang Yi and Murphy didn't respond at this time. Both of them felt that this topic was a bit awkward. Although Yang Yi was more open, when he exchanged glances with Murphy, there was a hint of inquiry. In your dreams? Murphy glared at Yang Yi in annoyance. Then she turned her head, and her neck was a bit red. Although Murphy grew up abroad, in fact, her family was very traditional. Therefore, she had always been a very conservative woman. Otherwise, when Yang Yi saved her, it wouldn't have been the first time. At home, naturally, Yang Yi personally cooked. Every time he made new and novel dishes for Murphy, but no matter what kind of dishes he made, they were all delicious. This made Murphy, who was somewhat picky about food, even began to taste the celery that she almost didn't eat before. It's not bad, right? Yang Yi saw Murphy's second chopstick. He smiled and said, I chose the more tender celery, cut it into small pieces, and then stir-fried it with tofu and wood ear. The original taste of celery will be much lighter and more delicious. Murphy's eating posture was still very elegant. When she ate a piece of celery, she picked it up like a little hamster and nibbled it bit by bit. She didn't want to open her mouth, as if it would affect her image. On the other hand, she ate more happily. She was presumptuous in her father's house. Her small spoon spilled the rice in the bowl all over the table. Yang Yi, a guy with obsessive-compulsive disorder, actually felt very uncomfortable every time he saw Shi like this. But gradually, he got used to it. Anyway, since it was going to spill, he would clean it up after dinner. but she didn't like celery. She shook her head and asked her father to take the celery out. Then, she pointed to the white tofu and said, "I don't want to eat celery. Celery tastes bad. She likes to eat this. You can't be picky about food. Children should eat everything to have a balanced nutrition." Murphy, however, insisted on giving she a big piece of celery with her chopsticks and seriously educated her. Suddenly, Murphy turned her head and glared at Yang-yi, who was beaming with joy, and said, "What are you laughing at? Did I say something wrong?" Yang-yi smiled and shook his head. He said, "You're still talking about she. When I was cooking just now, who was the one who said that she didn't want to eat celery?" "That's right. She thought that she was supported by her father." She pouted her small mouth and agreed. He was educating his daughter. This guy, he actually dared to undermine her. Murphy was so angry that she didn't want to show the scene of parents quarreling in front of she. Below the table, she stretched out her leg and kicked Yang-yi. But who knew that she would accidentally kick Yang-yi's face bone? It was so hard that she almost twisted her foot. Ouch! Murphy frowned and sucked in a breath of cold air. Yang-yi's reaction was actually a little slow. In a comfortable environment, he lowered his guard a lot. He only reacted when Murphy kicked him. But his movements were very fast. He subconsciously reached out and grabbed Murphy's foot. It was smooth to the touch, like brocade. Murphy was still wearing black stockings. Yang-yi didn't realize that something was wrong. Instead, it was this feeling that made him subconsciously touch it. From the ankle to the foot, it was petite, warm, and smooth. He now felt that something was wrong. He raised his head and saw Murphy, who was frowning in pain but looking at him with shame and anger. Oh no! Chapter 86. At this moment, time seemed to be frozen and stopped with the intersection of their eyes. At this moment, the air seemed to be filled with an awkward atmosphere. A drop of cold sweat slid down from Yang-yi's forehead. At this moment, Yang-yi wished he could dig a hole and hide in it. He didn't dare to look directly at Murphy. But he still had an idea. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Well, didn't you say it was painful? Let me have a look." She had no idea what was going on under the table. She found that she couldn't understand the conversation between her parents. With a puzzled look, she looked at her parents for a while and then at her mother for a while. Murphy's face was very hot, especially when her daughter was looking at her. She bit her lower lip and said angrily, "I'm fine. Let go of me." Only then did Yang-yi come to a sudden realization. He hurriedly let go of her hand, but the soft and smooth feeling on his fingertips still lingered. Both of them lowered their heads and kept their mouths shut in tacit agreement. They didn't say anything, but she had something to say. She pestered her father and said coquettishly, "Papa, help me take the celery out. She doesn't like celery." Yang-yi felt guilty. He stood on Murphy's side this time. He coughed twice and said, "No, your mother is right. You have to eat everything. Eat some celery. It's good for your stomach." Celery was rich in vitamins, carotenes, and many kinds of mineral elements that the human body needed. It had the effect of strengthening the stomach and promoting blood circulation, clearing the intestines and relieving the bowels. She usually ate a lot of meat and liked sweets. Sometimes she would have a stomachache because of the imbalance of nutrition. "Papa, can you take some away? I'll only eat a little, okay?" The little girl bargained. Of course, the amount of celery that Mo Fei gave Cici was a bit too much. Looking at it, Cici wrinkled her nose like a bitter gourd. Yang-yi had no choice but to take some away for she. The little girl barely managed to eat a few stalks of celery. After eating, she pushed the bowl away, jumped down from the chair, and said, "I'm done." Then, she ran away as if she was afraid that her father would make her eat celery again. Yang-yi and Murphy watched helplessly as their daughter ran to the side to play with her toys. But when she turned around and their eyes met, the awkwardness returned. The two of them didn't seem to be used to the feeling of being alone. It was even more awkward than being strangers. Moreover, it wasn't just awkward. There was an indescribable ambiguity that made the two of them feel uncomfortable from time to time. Ahem, you should eat more celery too. Yang Yi tragically found that he couldn't leave the topic of celery tonight. In order to break the silence, he tried to find something to talk about. You have a bad appetite. I'll try my best to cook Chinese dishes for you these days. Murphy couldn't help but ask, how do you know that my stomach is not good? Mo Xiaowan knew her situation better, but Mo Xiaowan didn't get along with Yang Yi. The two of them basically couldn't talk, so it couldn't be Mo Xiaowan who told Yang Yi. Could it be she? I saw it on TV. Yang Yi scratched his head, thought carefully, and said, it seems to be Yongcheng TV station's Something to Tell You. It was a talk show. Before Murphy released her album, she was arranged by the company to participate once. Yang Yi happened to be watching TV with Shi at home. He accidentally pressed the button and watched for a while. Murphy was silent. She didn't know how to express it, or rather, she didn't dare to express it. A warm feeling flowed in her heart. She was very touched. At night, Yang Yi moved to the guest room. Murphy and she slept in the master bedroom. Although they slept in Yang Yi's bed, Yang Yi changed the bedsheets and quilt. Also, Yang Yi's room was so clean that it was almost spotless. It was Murphy's first time staying there, but it was more comfortable than a hotel or her own bedroom. She lay on the bed. The pleasant smell of soap came from the pillow. Unknowingly, she gradually fell asleep. The night was quiet. The next day, just as the sky was turning bright, the chirping birds outside the window woke Murphy up. Although she got up early, she also went to bed early. Mo Fei stretched herself, got out of bed, opened the curtains, and looked at the banyan tree outside the balcony and the Grand Canal in the distance. With a wide view, Mo Fei only felt refreshed and very comfortable. She hadn't slept so well in a long time, right? Not to mention that Murphy's black and white state was reversed after she received the two songs Mu Ziong some time ago. Murphy hadn't slept well in the past 6 months since she decided to make a comeback. She was under a lot of pressure. Only today, on Yang Yi's bed, cough cough, it should be said that on Yang Yi's bed, Murphy found the feeling of sleeping well for the first time in 6 months. Almost without any thoughts in her mind, she slept until dawn. It was still early. Murphy looked at the time and closed the curtains again. Then, she tidied up the nightgown that was a little exposed when she slept. She hesitated for a moment, but didn't put on a coat. She pushed open the bedroom door and walked out. However, there was no trace of Yang Yi at home. Where did he go? Mo Fei saw that Yang Yi's room was also empty, and the bed was neatly made. The only difference from the barracks was that Yang Yi didn't fold the quilt like a piece of tofu, and the quilt was very sharp. In the bathroom, Murphy saw that her hair was messy and her eyes were a little swollen after waking up. In fact, she was still very beautiful. She was shocked and didn't have time to look for Yang Yi. She quickly went back to the bathroom to get facial cleanser and skincare products. She went to the bathroom to wash up and tidy herself up. After a long time, Murphy finally finished tidying up her personal appearance. Just as she was tidying up the messy things, there was a movement outside. Murphy was worried about Shi, so she hurriedly opened the door and went out. She happened to bump into Yang Yi, who was exercising and buying groceries. When Yang Yi went to exercise, he usually wore simple clothes. Today, he only wore a sports vest, and it was all wet with sweat. His strong muscles seemed to be smeared with oil, and the vest was stretched tight. The strong visual impact almost made Murphy feel suffocated. You. Murphy stuttered. She couldn't stop her heart from beating wildly. A hot breath spread from her chest to her neck, and then dyed her two delicate and small ears red. You're awake? Yang Yi was also a little flustered. He quickly glanced at Murphy's body and face, then raised the bag in his hand and said, I went to buy groceries. Well, I'll go to the kitchen to prepare breakfast first. Murphy didn't know how sexy she was now. She was tall and beautiful, and she had done her image management in the morning, so that she looked as beautiful as usual. But what Murphy didn't notice was that the nightgown she was wearing just now had a big hole in the neckline. Her swan-like slender neck, V-shaped delicate collarbone, delicate and clear skin, and faintly discernible mountain range. Yang Yi swept his eyes over her. Although Yang Yi was not inexperienced, he had been holding back for too long. Moreover, he didn't know why Murphy had a special attraction to him. With just one glance, Yang Yi felt his little brother was rapidly expanding. "Are you kidding me?" Afraid of making a fool of himself, he couldn't even speak properly and hurriedly ran into the kitchen. Murphy was busy with her own business, so of course, she didn't notice Yang Yi's strange behavior. She went back to the master bedroom and sat for a long time to calm down. How can I have no self-control? Almost at the same time, Murphy and Yang Yi secretly blamed themselves. Chapter 87. P.S. I'm going to Sanjiang this afternoon. Thank you, Great Hu Shuo, for your favor and Wutong for your support. This awkwardness had always existed faintly, but the two of them didn't like to express such extreme emotions. Therefore, when they sat together again, the two of them tacitly kept their mouths shut about what had just happened. Before lunch break, Murphy came to the guest room, which was Yang Yi's bedroom. She leaned against the doorframe and said, "Yang Yi, I want to discuss something with you." Yang Yi nodded and sat up on the bed. He wanted Murphy to sit on the chair, but Murphy didn't want to, so she just stood there. "I think that it's time to let she go to kindergarten." Murphy hesitated for a moment before saying this. Yang Yi frowned, so he subconsciously said, "Why? Why do you want her to go to kindergarten? If you don't have time to take care of she, then let her stay at my house." He didn't notice that his voice had been rising as he spoke. "That's not what I meant. It's not because I don't have time to take care of she that I want to send her to kindergarten." Murphy didn't expect Yang Yi to have such a big reaction. She was a little uncomfortable with Yang Yi's agitated appearance. Murphy explained very seriously, "I'll arrange for she to go to the best kindergarten in Zhongqing and let her receive the best bilingual education. She'll also have to learn music and drawing." If there was a word to describe Murphy, it would undoubtedly be Tiger Mother. She felt that she should receive the best education like she did when she was young. Moreover, she should develop in all aspects of morality, intelligence, and physical health. If it weren't for the fact that she was too young, Murphy would probably have made she attend all kinds of training classes and learn all the 4 arts, just like other mothers. But Yang Yi didn't think so. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, in the memory of his predecessor, he had received the kind of carefree education. In fact, Yang Yi felt that learning was only forced by the requirements of the assassin profession. He took the initiative to learn, was willing to learn, and studied desperately to achieve his current achievements. He did not think that kindergarten could teach she anything at all. If he really took it out to practice, the teachers in the kindergarten who taught music, chess, calligraphy, and painting were really no match for him. Therefore, Yang Yi said unhappily, "I can teach you at home too. Why must we go to kindergarten?" These words annoyed Murphy. She had forgotten that she actually had other reasons to persuade Yang Yi. She bit her lower lip and said angrily, "Yang Yi, don't think that just because you didn't have the conditions to receive a high-end education from a young age, she should walk the same path as you. She will go to university in the future and study for a master's degree. I don't want her to be like you, who didn't even get a high school diploma." These words were a bit too much, and Murphy regretted it as soon as she said them. But she was still angry, and she didn't know how to take the initiative to apologize. She regretted it one moment, and then found an excuse to tell herself that it was Yang Yi who deserved to be scolded. She was so conflicted that she turned her head away angrily. Murphy didn't see that Yang Yi's eyes suddenly became cold. Murphy probably didn't realize how hurtful her words were. Yang Yi didn't know that the emotions of his predecessor had a huge impact on him. The Yang Yi of the past had always been brooding about 2 things in his relationship with Murphy. The first was that he felt that Murphy looked down on him because he was poor, and the second was that he felt that Murphy looked down on him because of his low education and low social status. Although they were both self-righteous, It had to be said that the current Yang Yi was also a person with a strong sense of self, and it was easy for him to be influenced by such emotions. He was very unhappy with Murphy's words. "So what if you don't have a diploma? Is having a diploma that great?" Yang Yi felt that in his previous life, he didn't even go to school and didn't even have a diploma. But in terms of ability, he was much better than those graduates from famous universities. The relationship between the two of them had become closer during this period of time, but a crack appeared again. Maybe they hadn't noticed it yet, but Yang Yi subconsciously wanted to distance himself from Murphy. "Although I didn't study much, I'm still qualified to teach she some basic knowledge," Yang Yi said coldly. "Besides, a child should have a happy childhood, and not have painful memories in school. I'd rather she play for a few more years than go to school in a hurry." The last sentence was actually a summary that Yang Yi had made from those parenting books. Most experts thought that preschool education was unnecessary, and it was too rushed. It wasn't good for a child's physical and mental health. But Murphy wouldn't read the opinions of these experts. She was concerned about she's future development. "Yang Yi, don't be so naive, okay? If she doesn't learn these things, she'll be far behind others when she goes to school." Murphy turned her head and said angrily, "It's like a 100-meter race. Your starting point is 10 or 20 meters behind others. How can you catch up?" Well, it seemed that today, Yang Yi and Murphy were bound to have a big fight on this topic. But just as Yang Yi and Murphy were in a deadlock, a little person poked her head out. "Ah, you're all here with Papa." The little girl with bright eyes and white teeth giggled. She was ready to go to bed, but after waiting for her mother to come back, she jumped out of bed curiously and ran out barefoot. She's appearance immediately diluted the smell of gunpowder between Yang Yi and Murphy. Although Murphy was still brooding, she and Yang Yi put down the dispute at the same time. Her gaze fell on she's feet and said angrily, She, you're not wearing slippers again." He, "I want to sleep with Papa." She twisted her body and nimbly dodged her mother's hand. She laughed like a silver bell and ran toward her father. In the blink of an eye, she had already climbed onto her father's bed. Fortunately, Yang Yi wiped the floor clean every day. Although she was barefoot, she was not too dirty. However, Yang Yi, a guy with obsessive-compulsive disorder, looked here, the corner of his mouth twitched, and he felt a little helpless. He would have to wash the sheets again later. "Yang Xiaoxi, come down, go back to sleep," Murphy ordered. She quickly got into her father's arms. She stuck out her messy little head, and then naughtily made a face at her mother. "No, I want to sleep with Papa. Papa will tell me stories." "I can tell you stories too." Murphy felt a little wronged. But Papa's stories are the best. She's black gem-like eyes turned, and she suggested, "Mom, why don't you come too? We'll sleep with Papa together." Bah, children's words carry no harm, blown away by the wind. Murphy was blushed by her daughter. She even glared at Yang Yi, who had an innocent face, and turned to go out. "Then you sleep with your Papa. I'm leaving. Bye, Mom." She did not look back at all. She giggled and waved her hand, full of joy. This time, she could have Papa alone. Chapter 88. Murphy's vacation ended soon. She only stayed at Yang Yi's house for 2 days. Although the two had a lot of awkwardness in these 2 days, their relationship didn't develop further. On the contrary, because of the dispute over whether she should go to kindergarten, Murphy's words caused a crack in their relationship. It was unknown how long it would take to mend this crack. But what was known was that at present, Yang Yi and Murphy couldn't reach an agreement on whether she should go to kindergarten or not. Less than 2 days after Murphy left, Yang Yi received a letter from Harbor City. It was personally transcribed and sent by Chen Yijie. The content of the letter naturally couldn't avoid thanking Yang Yi for the support of the 2 songs, which allowed him to get the honor of platinum album early, and also allowed him to return to the ranks of super first-rate singers. On July 23rd, I'm going to hold a concert at Zhongqing's Hongren Fong Music Hall. I sincerely invite you and your family to come and watch. Chen Yijie also sent 5 concert tickets with the letter, all of which were VIP seats in the front row. It turned out that after Chen Yijie launched his new album, he also launched the plan of a national concert tour that had been suspended for 2 years. Harbor City was naturally the first and last stop, but he unexpectedly listed Zhongqing, which wasn't originally on the list, as the second stop. Obviously, he came to repay Yang Yi. Chen Yijie's original popularity was no less than Murphy's. Although he had reduced his activities in the past 2 years and concentrated on preparing his new album, his fans were more loyal than many celebrities. Coupled with the success of his new album this time, his popularity and limelight were unparalleled for a while. Before the concert tickets in Harbor City went on sale, there was a long queue outside several sales points. Then, in less than an hour, all the tickets were sold out. It was the same in Zhongqing. Not only the fans in Zhongqing, but also fans in Shanghai and other nearby cities came to buy tickets. There were even fans who couldn't get tickets in Harbor City who flew thousands of miles away. The tickets for the concert in Zhongqing were also sold out in less than a day. This was the speed of the pre-internet ticketing era. After Yang Yi saw this news, he felt that if the tickets were sold online, they would probably be sold out in a few minutes. Because the tickets were so popular, Yang Yi felt that Chen Yijie's gift was too sincere. These 5 VIP tickets were closer to the stage than the inner hall. Even if there were no scalpers, the original price would be tens of thousands of yuan. Moreover, there were people who were frantically trying to buy it. Even if they had the money, they might not be able to buy it. But Yang Yi didn't need so many. So, he and she would at most be able to watch it, right? He couldn't possibly give Murphy the tickets of other celebrities, right? Take her to a concert? Yang Yi wasn't so heartless. Wasn't he deliberately trying to annoy Murphy? Yang Yi had already planned to send the remaining 3 tickets back to Chen Yijie. At this time, Guazi called. Brother Yang, hurry up and watch TV. It's Zhongnan Satellite TV. Don't ask me why. Watch it first, he. In a burst of proud laughter, the little fatty hung up the phone. Yang Yi was a little confused, but he still turned on the TV. She, who was playing with toys, saw this and ran over quickly. She snuggled up to her father and said sweetly, "Papa, are you going to let She watch cartoons?" After Murphy came over, she corrected many of Yang Yi's bad habits of taking care of the children. One of them was letting She watch too much TV. In the past, Yang Yi could be said to be obedient to She. As long as the little girl didn't sit so close to the TV screen, he allowed She to turn on the TV and press the remote control to watch it by herself. It turned out that as long as it was something attractive, the children's learning ability was very strong. She could remember the operation of the remote control after watching it several times. But now, She's good days were over. According to Murphy's instructions, Yang Yi could only let She watch TV for 2 hours a day at most. Moreover, these 2 hours had to be divided into 2 parts, and she needed to rest for a few hours in between. Therefore, She looked at her father eagerly for the whole afternoon. Finally, her father turned on the TV. Not cartoons. Papa wants to watch Zhongnan Satellite TV. Yang Yi was not as proficient as the little girl. He had to press the buttons one by one to find a local channel. Okay then. She pursed her lips, but she didn't choose to go away. Instead, she hugged her father's hand and squeezed into his arms. Her big eyes were very clever. She looked at the TV for a while, and then looked at her father for a while. She was probably thinking about something in her heart. When Papa doesn't watch TV, will it be She's turn to watch cartoons? Finally, they found Zhongnan Satellite TV. The news anchor on the TV was introducing the results of this year's college entrance examination in Zhongnan province. At the same time, the cutoff score for liberal arts was announced. The results of the college entrance examination were announced the day before yesterday, right? Did Guazi want to tell Yang Yi how he did in the exam? But what did he mean by letting Yang Yi watch the news? Could he know whether he did well or not just by watching the news? Just when Yang Yi was confused, the news came to the segment where the reporters interviewed the top students of the liberal arts and science subjects. The appearance of the little fatty appeared on TV. "Hey, isn't this Uncle?" She reacted quickly and cried out in surprise. Yes. Yang Yi also saw it. He was shocked. This guy was the top student of science? And not only was he the top student of science in Jiangqing City, but the title given to Guazi on TV was the top student of science in Jiangnan Province. "Papa, is this Uncle Z?" She shook her father's hand and asked. "Yes, it's him." Yang Yi wanted to say that it was a coincidence, but when he thought of the little fatty's proud look just now, he was speechless. If it's not him, who else could it be? On TV, the reporter was asking Guazi about his learning skills. The little fatty said, "I don't have any skills in learning. The most important thing is that I have a lot of motivation to learn. I worked very hard before the exam. So I suggest that the examinees in front of the TV must find your goal and then work hard with all your might. I believe that you will definitely be able to get the ideal results." At this point, Guazi's answer was not bad. But the reporter asked another question, "Then can you share your goal with everyone? Is it to get into Beihua University of Qing University?" Yang Yi saw the excitement in Guazi's eyes. As expected, Guazi said, "No, my goal is to get into Jiangqing Media University." What? Yang Yi added a sentence in his mind for the dumbfounded reporter. Although Jiangqing Media University was considered a university, the cutoff score was not high. As the top student, he did not want to get into Beihua University of Qing University but wanted to get into this university. Wasn't this using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? 2 months ago, I took the art examination at Jiangqing Media University. But unfortunately, the examiners thought that I was fat and young, so they did not let me pass. Guazi said with a serious face, "But I'm not discouraged. I've set my ambition. I must get into Jiangqing Media University." In the end, he even waved his arms at the camera and shouted with high fighting spirit, "Jiangqing Media University, I'm coming." Yang Yi covered his forehead. He was completely speechless with this joker. He was obviously so talented, so why did he have to make things difficult for others? Moreover, did he have to be so high profile? She did not pay much attention to what the uncle on TV said. When she saw that her father was no longer watching TV, she rolled her eyes and secretly took the remote control from her father's arms. "Change the channel and watch cartoons." Chapter 89. Qiu Xiaotong was the class monitor of Wu Hu First Middle School's 3rd year, 2nd class. Although it was already summer vacation, because she had been promoted to the 3rd year of high school, the first-year students didn't have the chance to enjoy their vacation. They stayed at home for less than 10 days before returning to school. As a girl who grew up in the military, Qiu Xiaotong had a healthy complexion. She was tanned and had a carefree personality. She didn't care that her classmates said she was tan behind her back, that she was fierce and would hit people, that she was tall but didn't have a boyfriend, and that she wouldn't be able to get married in the future. After all, she was too straightforward. She was strict when it came to helping the teacher enforce discipline. When she saw something wrong or unfair, she would stand up for justice. This made her offend others often and become the public enemy of the female students. Why not the male students? Because Qiu Xiaotong was not only tall, but she was also a valiant and beautiful girl. Even if she was fierce, the male students couldn't bring themselves to hate her. During class today, Qiu Xiaotong discovered a new situation. A few male students gathered together and whispered something. One moment they were excited, the next moment they were depressed, and the next moment they were angry. Qiu Xiaotong frowned. She felt that this situation was very similar to the Qingming festival holiday when the male students were discussing going to the internet cafe to play games. Last time, Qiu Xiaotong passed by to buy sanitary products for girls and happened to bump into them. She threatened to tell the teacher, so this group of daring guys went back to study. "Hey, Gung Li, Jing Guisin, what are you guys doing?" Qiu Xiaotong walked over and shouted, "Don't tell me you guys are sneaking to the internet cafe to play games again?" Gung Li's body trembled. He retracted his hand and wanted to hide the thing in his hand. Jing Guisen cooperated with him. He stood up and blocked Qiu Xiaotong's view. He smiled and said, "Sister Tong, why would we still want to play games? Aren't we almost in the 3rd year of high school? We have to study hard. We are discussing literature." Another male student next to them had an idea and said, "Yes, we are discussing literature. We are discussing literature." Jing Guisen and Gung Li quickly echoed, "Discussing literature?" Qiu Xiaotong frowned. She didn't believe their nonsense. If they really liked literature, would they have messed up their language exam? Qiu Xiaotong, who was suspicious, looked at them carefully and immediately found something fishy. "Gung Li, what's in your hand?" "It's nothing," Gung Li said with a bitter face. "Take it out. Otherwise, I'll ask the teacher to confiscate it." Qiu Xiaotong threatened. Gung Li had no choice but to obediently take out the smartphone hidden in his hand. He knew that although Qiu Xiaotong was fierce, she was actually quite kind. If she didn't take it, she would at most teach it a lesson. Then, after school, she would let the students take it back. But if the teacher didn't take it, the parents would be informed. "You guys are using your phones to play games?" Qiu Xiaotong took her phone and said in exasperation, "Why aren't you concentrating on your studies at a time like this?" "Big Sister Tong, we're really talking about literature," Gung Li argued, feeling wronged. "If you don't believe me, take a look. We're talking about a novel." "What novel?" Qiu Xiaotong opened it suspiciously. "Drawing Sword. What kind of novel is this? You don't even know Liang Jian? This book is too popular." A boy beside him couldn't help but say. It was as if they had opened up a chatterbox and started talking all at once. "Drawing Sword is a novel about war. Li Yunlong is too awesome, Qiu Xiaotong had some understanding of the novel's popularity from their messy descriptions. There must be something unique and wonderful about it if it could make these boys so excited. "I think you should read it, Big Sister Tong." Jing Guisen's voice was so loud that it suddenly drowned out the voices of others. He said, "Big Sister Tong, isn't your family also a soldier? You'll definitely like this kind of military novel." "I think Big Sister Tong might not like it. The author killed off the female lead," Gung Li said weakly. "But isn't there a female lead at the end?" A boy next to him said. "But why would a girl like such a playboy male lead?" Gung Li said. "I told Lei about this book last time and she didn't like it very much. How is our big sister Tong an ordinary girl?" They started arguing among themselves again. Although she had not read it yet, the name of Drawing Sword was reflected in Qiu Xiaotong's mind after their argument. At night, Qiu Xiaotong returned to her home in the Jiangnan military region. She was indeed born into a military family. Her parents served in the frontier, so Qiu Xiaotong lived with her grandfather. Although her grandfather had retired, he still enjoyed the treatment of a high-ranking general as he was a high-ranking general. He had a small building with a garden and specially assigned guards. After finishing her homework, Qiu Xiaotong could not help but think of Drawing Sword that the boys were talking about. Qiu Xiaotong turned on her computer curiously and connected to the website that Gung Li gave her. Drawing Sword was written by Yang Yi. Qiu Xiaotong noticed that the author had also written a novel called Assault of the Soldiers. She was not in a hurry to read the book. Instead, she browsed through the book review section first. This was actually a bad habit because the book review section was prone to spoilers and it was easy to be misled by some comments. However, the book review section of Drawing Sword was very magical. Fans of the book were spamming posts saying, "Don't let Li Yunlong be persecuted." P.S. As for the plot after Drawing Sword, Xiaohan will not describe it again. After all, it's a bit of a landmine. I can only say that it's very touching and heartbreaking. Those who have never read a book but have only watched TV series suggest that you read the book. Almost half of the content was deleted from the TV series. This made Qiu Xiaotong even more curious. Looking at the book reviews, she knew that the book was about to end, but why were the fans crying and pleading with the author? Regardless, Cho Xiaotong started reading from the first chapter. The next day, Cho Xiaotong went to school with dark circles under her eyes. When she arrived at school, she gritted her teeth and gave Gung Li, Jing Guisen, and the others a good beating. "My dear Sister Tong, why did you beat us up?" Gung Li screamed. "It's all your fault for recommending that book to me. I read it until I lost track of time and only went to bed in the middle of the night." Cho Xiaotong said angrily. It was not that Drawing Sword was not good, but that it was too good. Cho Xiaotong was mesmerized by the chapters of tight battles. She did not want to let go at all, but by the time she came to her senses, it was already very, very late. Even so, she had only finished half of it in the middle of the night. There was more to come. Therefore, after school in the afternoon, Cho Xiaotong did not stay behind to study with her roommates. Instead, she went home early, hurriedly finished her homework, and continued reading. What Cho Xiaotong did not know was that Drawing Sword was ushering in its finale that day. Yang Yi did not waste any time and directly released the last chapter and epilogue together. However, Cho Xiaotong could not help but read it for a few hours until the end. Sob sob. When she saw Li Yunlong shoot himself, Cho Xiaotong, a tough woman who never shed tears, burst into tears. "Xiaotong, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" Cho Xiaotong's grandfather, Cho Weigua, knocked on his granddaughter's door with a cane and asked in a loud voice, "Who provoked our Xiaotong? Tell Grandpa. Grandpa will send someone to beat him to death." Sob sob, sob sob, it's Yang Yi. He's a bastard. Chapter 90. Cho Xiaotong's Yang Yi is a bastard was, of course, just a small misunderstanding. It did not bring any bloodshed to Yang Yi. General Chiu was old, but he was not muddle-headed. Instead, after his granddaughter's explanation, he developed a strong interest in Yang Yi's novels. It was not only Drawing Sword, but also Yang Yi's previous Soldier's Assault. Old General Chiu's blood boiled and he could not help but applaud. Old General Chiu became Yang Yi's fan and spurred the Jiangnan military region to learn Drawing Sword. They learned from Su Sandua's spirit of not giving up and giving up, which allowed Yang Yi's upcoming physical book to find a large sales outlet. Of course, that was all in the future. The completion of Drawing Sword brought Yang Yi a high reputation and many times more income than Soldier's Assault. That gave him the money to invest in Sahara Online Bookstore. However, the editor, Chong Zi, was very nervous. He had been harassing Yang Yi for the past few days. "Oh my God, you finished writing your old book a long time ago. Why don't you have plans to start a new book?" If an editor of traditional literature dared to urge an author like that, it would definitely be unprofessional. After all, traditional literature needed time to brew. How could an author start a new book after finishing one? However, that was the case with online literature. In order to maintain its popularity, new content had to appear constantly to retain the attention of readers. However, Yang Yi was not an ordinary online writer. He was indifferent to Chong Zi's urging. "I don't have plans to start a new book yet. Let's take a break for a month first." "How can that be?" Chong Zi said anxiously. However, Yang Yi would not easily change his plan, so Chongzi had to settle for the next best thing and said, "Then you have to tell us about the situation of the new book in the future. What's the theme and a general introduction so that we can arrange publicity for you and keep your popularity?" However, Yang Yi's next answer made Chongzi want to die. "I don't have a general introduction, but I can reveal the theme. I plan to write about crime." "What?" Chongzi was dumbfounded. "You're not writing about the military? Or are you going to write about military crimes?" "No, it's crime." "Oh right, I still have something to do, so I'll talk to you later. Bye." Yang Yi hung up the phone, leaving a messy Chong Zi alone in the office. Yang Yi wasn't trying to evade the responsibility. He really had something to do. Who asked Chong Zi to call him at such a bad time? Besides, Yang Yi couldn't be delayed for too long. She was alone in the car. Although the air conditioner was on, it wasn't safe. After putting down the phone, Yang Yi returned to the cake shop and continued to describe to the staff, "The general style is like what I drew on the paper. You have to make it feel like ice." Yes, I know it requires a lot of processes, but I also asked around for a long time before I found out that the craftsmanship here is more reliable. So as long as I'm satisfied, money isn't a problem. That's right, Yang Yi was ordering a cake for Shi. It was Murphy who told Yang Yi, so he knew that July 13th was his daughter's birthday. Therefore, in order to be able to prepare the first birthday party for Shi, Yang Yi began to prepare 2 days in advance, including ordering a cake, buying some decorations, gifts, and so on. Of course, in order to give Shi a surprise, Yang Yi certainly had to inform the cake shop to order a cake without telling Shi. After dealing with it, Yang Yi returned to the car. Shi was already a little impatient. The little girl pursed her lips and deliberately waited for her father to look at her after he got in the car. Then she turned her head angrily to express her strong dissatisfaction. Okay. Dad apologizes to you. I shouldn't have been gone for so long and made Shi wait for so long. Yang Yi smiled. How could he not see the little girl's little tricks? I don't want to talk to you, the little girl said angrily. Why? Yang Yi, an 8-foot-tall man, also became gentle in front of his daughter. He pretended to be wronged and asked. She turned her head, and the expression on her little face was still very serious. Because Papa, you said you were going to take Shi out shopping to buy clothes, but in the end, you left her in the car and went shopping alone. Yang Yi, tell me, are you lying to me? Shi's serious appearance at the beginning made Yang Yi somewhat unable to restrain a smile, but the Yang Yi at the end made Yang Yi suddenly confused. This little girl, where did she learn Murphy's tone? She also learned it vividly. Ahem, Dad just went to do something, and I didn't deceive Shi. Yang Yi said with a wry smile. Really? Cece's heart wavered. Yang Yi nodded fiercely and said, Yes, now is the time to go shopping. Shi's expression eased. She sighed deeply and said, Well, then I forgive you. The child's temper came quickly and disappeared quickly. Not long after Yang Yi started the car, Shi pestered him and asked, Papa, where are we going to play? Are we very close now? Are we going to buy a lot of clothes for Shi? She seemed to have 100,000 questions, and she couldn't stop asking. In fact, children were quite annoying. Sometimes some questions were asked repeatedly. If you didn't answer in time, she would be like a repeater, repeating hundreds of times. Fortunately, Yang Yi's character was relatively patient, and he could endure Shi's sometimes nagging like Tang Sanzang. In addition, he was really free, and he didn't get tired of answering the little girl's questions, and it didn't delay his own business, opening an unpopular coffee shop and writing novels. Although the main purpose of coming out this afternoon was to order a cake for his daughter, since he had promised to take Shi shopping, Yang Yi didn't break his promise. This time, he didn't go to Haihong Shopping Mall in Binhai District, but to the pedestrian street in Wuhu District of the LC District, because the cake shop was in Wuhu District. Of course, the things sold in this pedestrian street were not as expensive as those in Haihong Shopping Mall. Most of them were small businesses, and most of the people shopping were residents of the LC District. In the past, Yang Yi was shy of money. If he had to buy some clothes, he would choose this pedestrian street. Therefore, Yang Yi wanted to take the nostalgic route when he came to shop this time. He took his daughter to stroll around shop after shop. She was a feast for the eyes, but she didn't buy anything, because there were not many children's clothing stores in this pedestrian street. Instead, a jewelry store attracted Yang Yi and Shi to stop. Do you like this? Put it on, and you will really look like a little princess. Yang Yi smiled and took off a silver crown with beads, and put it on Shi's head. The price was very cheap. There was a price tag of 20 yuan on the shelf, and Yang Yi knew that if he was willing to bargain, there would be a maximum of 10 yuan. It could be seen that this crown couldn't be made of metal. At most, it was plastic, and the beads were the same. They were all glossy plastic beads. However, she still liked it very much. She looked in the mirror and lifted her small skirt with interest. She was very proud of herself. "We'll take this." Yang Yi smiled and handed the shop owner the money. It was okay to be nostalgic, but Yang Yi didn't like to bargain. After all, he wasn't who he used to be. Chapter 91. Murphy was recording a show at Xiangbei Station, but Mo Xiaowan didn't go with her. She had to go back to Qianmei's manager's monthly meeting. Although she didn't have to attend this meeting, for Murphy's new album, Mo Xiaowan still attended. In this management company, although there were 40 to 50 singers and actors signed with more than 20 managers, in reality, the power wasn't distributed at all. Whether it was a big or small matter, it was still Sister Ling who had the final say. Looking at the process of this meeting, it could be seen that Sister Ling was introducing, analyzing, and assigning tasks. Okay, today's meeting is about to end here. Does anyone have anything to add? Niu Meiling closed her notebook and clapped her hands. Mo Xiaowan had been waiting for this sentence. She quickly raised her hand and stood up. Sister Ling, I heard your work arrangements for this month and the general plan for the second half of the year. Why didn't I see anything about our Murphy's new album? As soon as her voice fell, the room buzzed with discussion. The other managers whispered to each other and looked at Mo Xiaowan with surprise, disdain, and even anger. Mo Xiaowan could vaguely hear some of it. No way, didn't she just release an album not long ago? She's going to release it again? Her last album's results weren't good. She should reflect on it. It's too much. She's bullying us just because she's signed. Our family's Yeye has been waiting in line for several years, but there's no plan for her to release an album. She only sings a few old songs every year. That's right. At the beginning of the year, it was the same for us. We said we could prepare a new album, but when she came back and said she wanted to make a comeback, the whole company wanted to collect songs for her. Her singing wasn't that good and she even delayed other people's work. Mo Xiaowan could only pretend not to hear these complaints. This couldn't be helped. The entertainment industry was a cruel world where only the fittest survived. Fairness had to be matched with strength. Murphy, as the top singer and empress, as Qianmei's biggest star, naturally had the best resources and the highest priority in the company. In other words, the reason why the company was willing to invest in Mo Fei was because they knew that Mo Fei could bring them more benefits. Of course, no one would have thought that Murphy's return album was released too hastily, which led to the effect of the current plummeting popularity. If it wasn't for the fact that Murphy had fallen from grace and Mo Xiaowan had made such a request in the past, those little agents wouldn't have dared to criticize her in front of her. However, this time, Niu Meiling didn't stop them. Instead, she waited for the discussion to die down a little before kindly saying to Mo Xiaowan, "Murphy is going to release a new album now? Isn't this a little too hasty?" Niu Meiling was worthy of being one of the top agents in the industry. When facing her, Mo Xiaowan felt a lot of pressure. She could only bite the bullet and say, "Ling Jie, I submitted an application to you the day before yesterday. Although Murphy's new album isn't as urgent as before, we should start collecting songs now, right?" "Oh, I saw your application." Niu Meiling narrowed her eyes and said to Mo Xiaowan, "You also mentioned that you already have 2 songs." Mo Xiaowan quickly nodded and said, "Yes, it's a song written by Murphy's fans. Murphy thinks it's pretty good and wants to include it in her future album." For some reason, Mo Xiaowan vaguely felt that she shouldn't mention the name Mu Xiang to Niu Meiling. So, she used the name of a fan. Fan. The other agents all sneered. They talked without restraint. Fans have the ability to write songs? I'm afraid Murphy's head is spinning. In their opinion, Murphy must have lost her mind. Otherwise, why would she think that a fan's song could be arranged in her album? If fans had professional abilities, would they still be called fans? They would definitely release another album that no one would buy. Sister Ling, you can't mess around with her. Jian Chua, one of the more influential agents in the company, stood up and said angrily, "Our Zhen Zhen is finally preparing for a new album. You have to help her collect some good songs. You can't always accommodate Murphy." What's the meaning of this? Zhen Zhen's name was Zhen Muqian. She was Chenmei's number 3 female star. She hadn't released a new album in 2 years, but because she was a dual star, she made a name for herself with a TV series she filmed last year. Recently, she frequently appeared on big-name variety shows and was developing well. Chua, sit down first. Don't be impatient. Nyo Meiling smiled and patted her hand. Zhen Zhen's performance this year is obvious to all. We have to support this hard-working child, so don't worry. As for Murphy Xiaowan, you have to persuade her. Nyo Meiling's voice was still as kind, but Mo Xiaowan felt that it was harsh. Murphy has just suffered a failure and is anxious to start over. We can understand this feeling, but the new album can't be rushed. Slow work produces fine work. Mo Xiaowan couldn't help but retort, Sister Ling, we can collect songs now. Murphy can wait. It won't be too late for us to release a new album after we collect 12 songs. But the problem is that the company doesn't have that many resources right now. Nyo Meiling's tone became serious, and the entire conference room suddenly fell silent. You heard it too. Zhen Zhan is going to release a new album. Zhu Jie is also preparing his new album, and this and that are all waiting for their new songs. The company can't just do nothing and collect songs for Murphy alone, right? At this moment, although the conference room was silent, almost everyone had a "that's right" look in their eyes. Mo Xiaowan was a little speechless. She could actually understand what others were thinking, but the problem was that she was Murphy's agent and had to stand by Murphy's side. If Murphy opened a studio alone, how convenient would that be? Although the price to pay for songs is higher, at least there's freedom. And with Mu Zi Ong around, there shouldn't be too much of a problem with collecting songs, right? Mo Xiaowan thought to herself. That's right. Mu Zi Ong. Mo Xiaowan raised her head and said to Nyo Meiling, Sister Ling, if we collect enough songs ourselves, can the company bring forward Murphy's new album plan? Nyo Meiling frowned. She was very wary of such a situation. She always had the feeling that the stars under her had grown wings and wanted to go solo. But she still smiled and asked, Is that so? Where are you going to collect songs? We're Murphy's fans. Mo Xiaowan said. Suddenly, everyone, including Nyo Meiling, showed a mocking expression. Collecting songs from fans, to think she could even think of that. If you can collect 12 songs, the company promises to immediately arrange for Murphy to release an album. Nyo Meiling agreed. Nyo Meiling had her own plans. She wanted to grind Murphy's temper and make Murphy suffer a little more. Murphy's contract was entering the last year, but Nyo Meiling didn't want to sign such a lucrative contract with Murphy. If she could make Murphy recognize reality, then there would be a lot of room for manipulation in the future. Chapter 92. Mo Xiaowan wasn't as innocent as Murphy. She could vaguely see Nyo Meiling's intentions, but she still held back her anger and didn't argue with the big boss. She didn't complain to Murphy until Murphy came back from Xiangbei Station. Sister Fei, I think we should wait until the contract is over and jump ship, or open our own studio. Mo Xiaowan said angrily, this Tianmei person doesn't put us in her eyes at all. Sister Ling also wants to suppress us. Murphy was silent for a while, then shook her head and said, Sister Ling has done me a favor. Unless they go too far, I can't let her down. In fact, Murphy still had something in her heart that she didn't say out loud. Even if I open my own studio, I won't betray Sister Ling and jump ship to another agency. When Mo Xiaowan mentioned the idea of opening her own studio, Mo Fei was a little tempted. However, her original intention was different from Mo Xiaojuan's. Mo Xiaowan wanted more freedom and arranged the album according to Murphy's own ideas. Murphy also wanted more freedom, but she wanted to arrange the schedule according to her own ideas and reduce the commercial performances and program recordings that she didn't want to participate in. However, Mo Fei hadn't made up her mind yet. After all, it was Sister Ling who nurtured her. In the past, when Sister Ling was her manager, she really took care of her like a mother taking care of her daughter. She also helped Mo Fei avoid many detours. This included when Yang Yi beat up the rich second generation and stole his car to escape with Murphy. It was Sister Ling who came forward and spent a lot of favors to suppress the matter so that the rich second generation would no longer pursue it. Murphy still remembered the kindness of these years. She wanted to repay Sister Ling, so she chose to come back and make a comeback in Sister Ling's company. This is not too much? Mo Xiaowan said unhappily. Zhen Zhen and her agent are riding on top of our heads, and Sister Ling still doesn't speak up for us. Sister, look clearly, Sister Ling is no longer the Sister Ling from before. That's because I really didn't perform well enough on my comeback album. Murphy sighed, my grades are bad. No wonder Sister Ling wants me to calm down and settle down, right? But don't you want to release a new album? Right now, the company doesn't have any plans to buy any songs for you. How long do we have to wait to line up like everyone else? Mo Xiaowan asked. Murphy fell silent. Mo Xiaojuan's words had hit the nail on the head. Murphy wanted to make a hit record. If she wanted to return to the top, she needed the support of the company. Plus, Murphy didn't want to wait. Mo Xiaowan saw that Murphy was silent. She smiled and said, Sister, luckily I was smart. I helped you get a promise from Sister Ling. As long as we get 12 songs, she will do her best to help us release an album. Murphy was speechless. Where are you going to find 12 songs? Find Mu Ziong. Mo Xiaowan said proudly. He's such an excellent songwriter, so he must have a lot of good songs. Plus, he's your admirer. Writing songs for you and helping you release an album. How wonderful is that? But Mo Fei was embarrassed and annoyed. Xiaowan, how can you do this? Her relationship with Yang Yi was stable, even if there were some arguments. But even if she and Yang Yi were in a lukewarm state, Murphy had never thought of accepting other people's pursuit. After all, Yang Yi was still Shi's father, wasn't he? Plus, her heart was gradually getting closer to Yang Yi. It was even harder for others to enter her heart. Murphy had always felt guilty about accepting songs written by her admirer. But Murphy liked both songs very much, so she couldn't make up her mind to reject them. But now Mo Xiaowan said that she wanted to continue asking Mu Ziong for songs. It wasn't just 1 or 2 songs, but 10 songs. Murphy couldn't afford to owe him this favor. No, I don't agree to this. I can't ask him for more songs. Murphy rejected Mo Xiaojuan's suggestion. Hee, I knew you wouldn't agree. Mo Xiaowan proudly pulled Murphy to her desk and opened an email. So I'll act first and report later. In the email, Mo Xiaowan used Murphy's name to send an email to Mu Ziong. Of course, Mo Xiaowan didn't use a very flattering tone, nor did she use explicit words. She simply described her current situation and asked Mu Ziong if he had any new songs for her. Mu Ziong had already replied. He didn't say yes or no. He only said, give me some time. There's still hope. Mo Xiaowan said happily. But she felt a bone-chilling cold. She turned her head and saw Murphy looking at her with cold eyes. Mo Xiaowan shivered. She couldn't smile anymore and felt very awkward. Mo Xiaowan. Murphy said word by word, who gave you the right? You sent him an email without my permission? Did I say I was asking for it? The new album can't be released now, but I can wait. But I won't allow you to ask him for songs. Because Mu Ziong was a man. Murphy didn't want to have too deep of an entanglement with him. She also didn't want this to affect her relationship with Shi's father because of this matter. Mo Xiaowan panicked. Although she knew that Murphy, as her cousin, wouldn't fire her, she was still a little anxious when faced with Murphy's anger for the first time. Sis, I was wrong. This time, I didn't think it through. Mo Xiaowan lowered her head. Her voice was weak and she felt wronged. Next time, I'll definitely do things according to your request. I won't act first and report later. Murphy bit her lower lip. The coldness on her face dissipated slightly. After a while, she said, send him another email to clarify. Mo Xiaowan plucked up her courage and said, Sis, there's no need for that, right? It wasn't easy for us to get Mu Xiang to write songs for us. Think about it, Mu Xiang is so good. Who knows, maybe he can write better songs than the previous two. Murphy was stunned for a moment. This time, she wasn't as determined as before. Mo Xiaowan saw that there was hope, so she quickly said, "How about this, we don't need to clarify in the email. What I said was the truth. But if we have the chance to meet Mu Xiang in the future, I'll apologize to him. Right now, we can't pin all our hopes on Mu Xiang. I'll go to the Copyright Association's website and pick new songs one by one. It's okay, even if it's a little tiring. I don't believe that we can't get 12 songs." Mo Xiaowan patted her chest and said, "This method was the stupidest. After all, in the environment where copyright protection was very good, there were many domestic songwriters. Every day, thousands of songwriters were uploaded and recorded on the Copyright Association's website, but most of them were terrible songs. Trying to find a good song among so many songs was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, they might have to compete with many companies in the process. If they were slow, they might not get it. But even if it was the stupidest method, it was the only way for independent musicians." Murphy sighed and said, "Don't do it again. I'll pick with you." Chapter 94. Yang Yi replied to Mo Xiaowan that he needed time to prepare the songs. This was not a perfunctory reply, nor was it because Yang Yi really could not find a suitable song for Murphy. On the contrary, Yang Yi did not have too many songs in his hands. He could take out almost all of the popular songs from his previous life, enough for Murphy to produce several albums. However, Murphy basically wanted to sing songs with a female voice. Yang Yi had not played those songs in his previous life, so naturally, he could not take out the music score directly. Fortunately, his memories from his previous life were very clear. It was like extracting audio files from a hard drive. As long as it was a song that he had listened to once, he would not forget it. Therefore, he only needed to dig out the music score. Of course, this was quite a lot of work, because Yang Yi did not want to dig out the simplified music score, but the overall music score that had been modified and perfected by professional musicians and producers. It could be said that he could use it immediately. Fortunately, as a fan of classical music in his previous life, Yang Yi could play the 3 major musical instruments. Naturally, his ability to dig out the music score was not to be doubted. As long as it was not an unpopular instrument like the guzheng or sun, Yang Yi could still dig out the complete music score. Even if it was the drums and the flute, Yang Yi knew a little about them. After Murphy finished recording the show, she did not go home. Instead, she avoided the media and paparazzi and quietly came to Yang Yi's residence like she did before she went out to run her jobs. She did not know if she was obsessed with this place, or if it was just like what she had explained to Yang Yi, "I'm here to celebrate Xi-Xi's birthday with you." Yang Yi lived in a small building that was next to a mountain and a river. There were willows in front of the door, and there were also clusters of flowers. In the morning, they could see the morning sun dispersing the mist, and in the evening, they could see the river reflecting the sunset. The scenery was intoxicating. Although it was the holidays and there were few people, didn't Murphy like this kind of tranquility? No one would disturb them, and no one would bump into them. They could let down their guard and take a real vacation. What's more, Murphy was stubborn and refused to admit it. Living in this small house, there was his daughter's cheerful laughter and his occasional bickering. Although it was noisy, it was warm and cozy. This was the feeling of home. One day before Xi-Xi's birthday, Murphy and Yang Yi took action. The two of them avoided Xi-Xi and went to the balcony to discuss while the little girl was watching TV. "Where do you plan to set it up?" "It's in the coffee shop on the first floor. I've been closed for a few days, so I left it for Xi-Xi. The first floor is full of transparent glass. Don't be afraid. There's basically no one here at night. Besides, if we did it in the living room on the second floor, wouldn't Xi-Xi have found out? All right then, where's the cake?" "I've already ordered the cake. Tomorrow night, Help me stall Shishi. I'll ask the cake shop to send it over. It'll be sent to the first floor first. Last time you told me on the phone that you spent tens of thousands to order the cake. I don't have a choice. I want to make a snow castle for Shishi that she wants to see the most. I even specially gave the design to the cake shop. But it's very complicated to make, and they have to make a few samples to try first. After all this, the cost is very high. Alright, according to what you said, it's not very expensive. But do you have enough money? Murphy was still a little worried about Yang Yi's wallet. Hey, don't underestimate me. After all, my novel earns millions a month. It's more than you working hard to make money from commercial performances, okay? Don't mention my sad things. Otherwise, I'll be angry again. Murphy said angrily. No matter how much money you make, I still have to work. Music is my dream. This was the first time Murphy talked about this issue with Yang Yi openly. But surprisingly, Yang Yi was not as stubborn as before. On the contrary, Yang Yi was very natural and easygoing. Of course, doing what you like to do makes life worthwhile, right? Yang Yi smiled faintly. I support you. Murphy looked at Yang Yi in disbelief, as if she was looking at a stranger. Wait a minute. Is this still Yang Yi? He actually supports me? He supports my music career? Murphy did not even care about being moved. First, she was confused by Yang Yi's completely different views from before. One had to know that Yang Yi had strongly opposed it in the past. Almost every time Murphy met him, the two of them would quarrel. Yang Yi's super traditional view of, whether you're rich or poor, I don't want you to appear in public and sing for others, really made Murphy collapse. P.S. Everyone may have forgotten that this conflict of views was mentioned at the beginning of the book, but everyone chose to ignore it. This was the reason why Murphy found it difficult to accept Yang Yi before. It was not because of his education, wealth, or status. He felt that Murphy cared about his education, wealth, and status. It was just a misunderstanding of the original Yang Yi. Then, this bigoted view was deeply ingrained in his memory and affected the current Yang Yi. Let's mention it again here. I hope everyone can distinguish the reality and misunderstanding described by Xiao Han in the conflict. Yang Yi looked at Murphy's eyes and realized that he was in danger of being exposed. He quickly laughed twice and said, Let's not talk about this. Have you prepared a birthday present for Shishi? Her daughter was still more important. Murphy pulled back her mind from the doubts just now. She smiled and said, Of course, I asked Xiaowan to help me buy it. It's already here. What did you prepare? Yang Yi asked. Murphy was vigilant. She looked at Yang Yi suspiciously and said, Why are you asking this? Do you want to see what my present is like and then buy a more expensive one for yourself? Yang Yi did have some thoughts of comparison. He really hoped that she would like his present more. After all, he had carefully prepared for a long time. He could not let Murphy steal the limelight. After being exposed by Murphy, Yang Yi smiled awkwardly and said, How can it be? My present wasn't bought. How can it be measured by money? Humph. She lived with me for 4 years. As the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than a mother. I know what she likes the most. Murphy raised her chin a little proudly, revealing her white and slender jade neck. But she's the happiest when she's with me, Yang Yi said, unconvinced. But women know women best. Murphy took off her indifferent disguise. In front of Yang Yi, she looked more and more like a little girl. She pouted angrily and said, If you don't believe me, let's compete tomorrow and see whose present she likes the most. Okay. Let's compete. What will you do if you lose? Yang Yi was interested. You will lose. Murphy snorted and said, If we lose, we have to promise each other one thing, okay? Unconditional. Deal. Yang Yi did not think that he would lose. He reached out his hand confidently. Yang Yi wanted to shake hands and bump shoulders with Murphy to signal the start of the bet. In the end, Murphy did not understand. She looked at Yang Yi with vigilance. What are you doing? Yang Yi awkwardly retracted his hand and scratched his head. Nothing, my head is itchy. Chapter 95. If there was someone standing in front of Yang Yi, he would definitely punch that person until his own mother couldn't recognize him. F***ck, Yang Yi, what bad things have you done? In the afternoon, when Yang Yi was busy decorating the venue for his daughter's birthday party, the boss of Sahara, Mr. Fu Jun, who often had a wild imagination, called. He started to make a fuss. The soldiers are here. These words scared Yang Yi so much that he almost wanted to pack up his things and run away with his daughter and Mo Fei. Although Yang Yi's body was that of a retired soldier, his soul was that of a transmigrated killer. When the soldiers came, Yang Yi's first reaction was to be surrounded. Just like in his previous life, he was hunted down by the NSA, MI5, FSB, and DGSE. If he didn't run fast enough, he would have been dead. But obviously, this was a misunderstanding. In this life, Yang Yi knew his place. The only illegal thing he did was to expose Luo Jinrong. Yang Yi had cleaned up his tracks, so no one would be able to trace it back to him. Plus, no one would be able to find trouble with him. Haha, are you scared? Relax, relax, I'm just joking with you. Fu Jun, this annoying guy, exaggerated the truth, lied about the military situation, and laughed proudly. What is it? If you have something to say it. Yang Yi really wanted to beat someone up. Unfortunately, Fu Jun was not in front of him. He could only recite the great compassion mantra, mercy, mercy, violence is useless. It goes against the harmony of heaven, hurts the liver, and hurts the kidneys. Revenge is a dish best served cold. 10 years later, I'll put him in a gunny sack and beat him up. Someone from the army is here. I'm not lying to you about this. Fu Jun was almost 40 years old, but he still acted like a young man. He was very trendy, and his mind was very jumpy. But it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, a very good thing. It turned out that the higher-ups in the army had sent someone to get the address of Sahara through Chi Yu. Then, they came to urge the publishing house to print the physical books as soon as possible. They have included your 2 books in the recommended reading list for all soldiers in the army this year. Although not everyone will have a copy, the purchasing department has already placed a huge order for 2 million copies each. Fu Jun then revealed his excitement. Yang Yi, do you know that you're famous? 2 million copies sold before the book was even released. 2 million copies in this world's physical book sales record was only a small number. After all, to be in the top 100 sales of Chinese books, at least tens of millions of copies. But before it even went on sale, there were already 2 million copies. This result could be said to be a pleasant surprise. With a good start, Fu Jun began to look forward to what kind of explosive results it would have when it was actually released. So, what did you do? Why would the army give us such a big order? Fu Jun was dying of curiosity. But Yang was Yang of Spi? He was at a loss and replied helplessly, You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask? Could it be that his identity was exposed? Yang Yi's name was seen by the previous leaders of the army, so they gave him compensation? Of course not. A few days ago, after Qiu Xiaotong explained the misunderstanding of Yang Yi is a bastard, she recommended drawing sword to her grandfather. The old man could not read the computer, so Qiu Xiaotong asked the guards to print it out for her grandfather. Although General Qiu Weigua did not participate in the war against the Japanese, he was born in that era of war. His father and grandfather were also soldiers and officers who sacrificed themselves in those wars. Although the characters and plot described in Drawing Sword were fictional, the fiction was very realistic. Qiu Weigua's eyes were filled with tears and his blood was boiling. He could not help but take out the military knife he had treasured before, pulled it out shakily, and roared, "Kill the Japanese!" His roar scared the guards, thinking that something serious had happened. After a moment of panic, they had to call the medical staff to check on the old man's body. They were afraid that his blood pressure would increase due to the excitement, which would be troublesome if something happened to his body. Cho Weigua was not satisfied after reading it himself. He called his old comrades and some old generals of the Jiangnan military region to read it together and discuss the plot. They even discussed how they should fight the battle, and if his wife was captured, would he fire the cannons to blow up both the Japanese and his wife. Drawing sword was not enough, so Qiu Xiaotong quickly recommended soldiers' assault to her grandfather. If the main rhythm of drawing sword was hot-blooded, then the main rhythm of soldiers' assault was inspirational. Inspirational did not have much effect on these generals who were used to hardships, but they saw the real life in the military camp and the growth of a real soldier in the book. This must be a book written by a retired veteran. It's so realistic. General Lu Pengju, the younger of the old generals and the current deputy commander of the Jiangnan military region, lamented. The first paragraph made my scalp tingle. It reminded me of when I first joined the army. General Lu Pengju was a typical example of a soldier who rose to become a general. He used to be a soldier in the countryside, but after joining the army, he was caught up in the frontier wars. He repeatedly made military achievements and rose through the ranks. Later, he entered the era of peace and became the deputy commander of the Jiangnan military region. Although his experience was different from Su Sandwa's, General Lu Pengju could understand the feelings and thoughts of the grassroots troops and frontline soldiers. Therefore, he could tell at a glance that the book was extraordinary. After all, it was revised by Yang Yi. Drawing sword should be promoted in the army. An old general about the same age as Cho Weigua waved his hand and suggested loudly, "We soldiers in peacetime lack the spirit of drawing our swords written in this book. No matter how strong the enemy is, no matter how good the enemy's equipment is, no matter how difficult the battle is, our troops must fight bravely. Soldier's Assault is also a good book. Don't abandon it, don't give up." Cho Weigua echoed. This slogan should be written in the notebook by our soldiers and memorized in their heads. No matter what, everyone must be united. This is the army that can win the war. The two old generals' proposal was approved by the others. Deputy Commander Lu Pengju, who liked the two books more and more, added fuel to the fire and submitted the proposal to capital. Therefore, Fu Jun's shock just now came about. Yang Yi was not interested in the news. It was good enough that he did not beat up Fu Jun. After hanging up the phone, he continued to decorate the scene of his daughter's birthday party. For him, this was the most important thing. However, Yang Yi did not care, but that did not mean that others did not care. Everyone in Sahara Publishing House was now rubbing their hands together and excitedly devoted themselves to the physical publishing project of Yang Yi's two books, striving for an early release. Faster, faster. Everyone, get moving. Fu Jun was like a big bad guy waving a whip. He danced excitedly in the conference room and gave orders. Chapter 96. Papa is very strange today. He doesn't play with Shishi anymore. Shishi sat on the Persian carpet in the living room with her big bear, cat, baby in her arms. She raised her head for a while and secretly glanced at her mother, who was reading on the sofa like a cat with her legs crossed. Murphy was also like this at home. She liked to sit quietly and read a book, and then let Shishi play by herself. She was willing to accompany her daughter. If she had something to say to her, Murphy would put down the book and respond gently. However, it was really not her character to let her sit on the ground and play with toys like a child. P.S. It's understandable that many adults are the same in reality. But because of this, Shishi preferred to be with her father, because her father would play with her toys, make characters with the toys, and tell her vivid stories. Mom said that Papa is running a shop downstairs and doesn't let Shishi go to find Papa. Shishi muttered in her heart, and her little head was filled with thoughts. Then Papa must be secretly cooking delicious food downstairs and doesn't let Shishi eat it. Shishi is so sad. Shishi was going to be 4 years old today. She had her own thoughts and her own observation ability. Therefore, she knew that her father would not be very busy when he was running the shop, and he often accompanied Shishi to paint. How could he be so busy that he was afraid of being disturbed? Therefore, the little girl's imagination ran wild and she thought of other things. She couldn't hold back her words. After muttering to herself for a while, she rolled her big bright eyes and got up from the carpet. She ran to Mom's hand and said, "Mom, I'm hungry." Murphy put down the book in her hand, gently stroked her daughter's hair, and said softly, "Mom will make you a glass of milk to drink." She shook her head and said, "No, I want to eat." Murphy had a headache. She stood up and went to the kitchen to open the refrigerator. Seeing that it was full of raw meat and vegetables, she was a little helpless. Why was this fridge different from hers? There were 2 refrigerators in Murphy's house. She often opened them to look for food in the living room. Auntie Zhu had prepared many of her favorite snacks, yogurt, and some fresh fruits for her. Those are all ready to eat. Now, all the food in Yang Yi's fridge was raw, which made Murphy, who had never done any household chores, dumbfounded. She knew what her mother was thinking. She pouted and said, "Papa put the delicious food in the cabinet next to the TV, but she doesn't want to eat those." "What do you want to eat?" Murphy asked, puzzled. She had long wanted to say, "I want to eat the delicious food that Papa makes." "Mom, let's go find Papa, okay? He said he was downstairs." Murphy frowned. Just as she was thinking of an excuse to appease she, there was a movement outside. Murphy breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yang Yi came back. Otherwise, he would be pestered to death by his daughter. Cici was the first to run out of the kitchen happily. Then, she jumped up with her slender legs and let her father catch her. Then, he carried her up. She said with a little grievance, "Why did Papa ignore Cici in the afternoon?" Because Papa is doing something very big." Yang Yi threw a look at Murphy, indicating that she was ready. Murphy understood and quickly turned back to the master bedroom and took out the gift from her bag. "What is it?" She was immediately attracted by her father's words. She didn't complain and asked curiously, "This very big thing is?" Yang Yi deliberately delayed, waiting for Murphy to come out. What is it?" She held her father's face with her white and tender hands. She tried to turn around and said, "I'm so anxious." "What is it?" "Papa will take you downstairs to see it." Yang Yi saw Murphy come out and said with a smile, "Okay, let's go see it." She anxiously twisted her little butt. "Can we go now?" Yang Yi asked Murphy. Murphy raised her hand, pushed a strand of hair that was blown by the wind back to her ear, and nodded. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening. Although there was still a faint afterglow of the setting sun on the horizon, the sky was already dark. The coffee was also dark, like a black hole. She had already come down from her father's arms, but when she saw this, she was scared and squeezed to her father's feet. She even used a small hand to grab her father's trousers and said timidly, "Papa, I'm scared." "Don't be afraid, wait for Papa to go in and turn on the light, then everything will be fine," Yang Yi said with a smile. But at this time, he suddenly felt that his shirt was tightened. He subconsciously turned his head and saw Mo Fei's face that was a little pale due to nervousness, and her left hand that was gently holding a small corner of his shirt. Yang Yi froze for a moment. She was also scared? Murphy happened to meet Yang Yi's eyes. She saw the surprise in Yang Yi's eyes. She blushed, quickly released her hand, and then turned her head to the side. "How old are you? Still scared?" Yang Yi, this idiot, said with a smile. He really touched the pot that didn't boil. Murphy angrily rolled her eyes at Yang Yi, kicked him, and said angrily, "Why aren't you opening the door?" She's little body was relatively low, so she didn't raise her head to look. She didn't know what was going on. She thought her father was talking about her. "How old are you?" She said in a daze, "I'm 3 years old, but it's so scary." Murphy and Yang Yi, who were fooling around, heard she's words and were stunned for a moment. Then, they looked at each other and laughed. After opening the door, Yang Yi didn't press the light switch, but directly pushed the switch. Suddenly, the coffee shop lit up like a flash bomb. Mo Fei and Cici were caught off guard for a moment, so they were both flashed. It took them a while to see clearly. Wow! She was the first to exclaim. The colorful lights in front of the bar were pulled up and flashed. If the incandescent lights were turned off later, it would look like little stars in the night sky. And on the line of the lights, there were strands of colorful ribbons hanging down, with triangular flags hanging in between. On the surrounding ground, Yang Yi used balloons of different colors to form a border. On one side, there was a triangle of 4 balloons, and on the other side, there was a cube of 8 balloons. Not only that, but the bar was also decorated with rainbow stickers and white balloons to form the shape of the sky. Inside the bar counter, there was a large white blackboard with the words, "Happy 4th birthday," Yang Shi, pasted on it with colored paper. "It's so beautiful." Of course, she couldn't fully understand these words, but she recognized a name and curiously ran over to take a closer look. Shi, today is your 4th birthday." Murphy smiled. She walked over, took the little girl's little hand, and said, "After tonight, you'll be 4 years old." "Is this all for Shi's birthday?" Shi's mother used to celebrate her birthday for her, but her memory was a little blurry. She only remembered that there had never been such a big occasion. She asked excitedly, "Yes. Your father prepared all day." Murphy turned to look at Yang Yi. In fact, it was also her first time seeing the results. She couldn't say that she was particularly shocked, but she could see Yang Yi's efforts in every aspect. Murphy's eyes also shone with a touched light. Chapter 97. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You have to wear this hat first. Yang Yi had indeed made a lot of preparations for Shi's birthday. After all, it was his first birthday party. He had even looked up some examples on the internet and learned how to decorate. At this moment, he seemed to have thought of something. He hurried to the nearby basket and picked up a few hats. She wants to wear this. Yang Yi's right hand was holding the artificial crown that he had bought with Shi the other day. Although it was cheap, under the light, it was sparkling and looked like a real princess's crown. "Mom, is Shi pretty?" Shi smiled sweetly and let her father put the crown in her hair. She didn't dare to move her neck and could only turn her body. "Very pretty. My little princess. By the way, Yang Yi, I think we can take a picture here as a souvenir." "Keep it as a souvenir." Mo Fei patted Yang Yi's arm and said intimately. "Yes, but wait a minute." Yang Yi was still holding 2 conical hats in his left hand. He put one on first and then gestured to Murphy. "I don't want to wear it." Murphy laughed and took a step back, waving her hands. "How can this be? It's Shi's birthday. We have to wear it." Yang Yi blocked Murphy in front of the bar counter, leaving her with no way out. Then he helped Murphy put it on, hooked it with a rope, and hung it under Murphy's chin. This process was inevitable. Yang Yi's fingertips brushed across Mo Fei's chin, feeling the delicate texture of her skin, and looking at her blushing cheeks. She was as beautiful as a painting. He was so mesmerized that he forgot to retract his finger. Mo Fei also leaned against the bar counter in a daze, looking up at Yang Yi. At such a close distance, Murphy could almost feel Yang Yi's breath. At such a close distance, Murphy could almost feel Yang Yi's burning gaze. At such a close distance, Murphy forgot to hide. She looked at Yang Yi's chiseled face in a daze. "Why aren't you guys done yet? I can't wait any longer." It was Cece's voice that interrupted this moment of intimacy. Murphy was the first to react. She blushed and pushed Yang Yi away, pretending nothing had happened, and walked toward Shi. Yang Yi also shook his head and smiled. He also pretended nothing had happened. He went to the side, picked up the SLR camera he had bought before, and said loudly, "Shi, Daddy is here to take photos for you." He took several photos. There was a photo of Shi alone with the yes sign that would never change. There was also a photo of Shi and Murphy together. "Yang Yi, come over and take photos with us." Murphy was having a good time with Shi just now. She smiled and waved at Yang Yi. "I have to take photos too?" "There's no need, right?" Yang Yi scratched his head. I still have to take photos for you guys. In fact, he was not very willing to take photos. His old ideas made him feel that as long as he took photos, it would be easy for his opponents to track him down. However, it seemed that he did not have to worry about this problem now. After all, he was no longer an assassin, but an ordinary person. Come here, Murphy said. You're my father. How can you say no? Come, let's take a photo together as a family of 3. Murphy almost blurted out the words, family of 3. Then, she realized it and blushed. However, it was true. She was already 4 years old, and the 3 of them had never taken a photo together. Yang Yi did not insist. He adjusted the camera's timer, then ran over to Murphy and hugged the little girl, who was smiling brightly, in the middle. Click. The picture froze. Everyone had a smile on their faces. Even Yang Yi and Murphy smiled naturally. They only hoped that this happiness would last forever. There was food on the bar. Not only were there freshly washed fruits, but there were also snacks baked and made by Yang Yi himself. When Yang Yi was fiddling with the camera and preparing to record the video with a tripod, Murphy held the little princess's hand and came over to try the food first. This is a cookie. Murphy picked one up and took a bite. She always ate elegantly. She only took a small bite, and her left hand was still under her chin, for fear that some residue would fall out. Oh, delicious. Mo Fei liked Yang Yi's craftsmanship very much. This cookie was not only exquisitely made, but it also looked as good as the ones in the cake shop. Moreover, it was crispy and sweet, and the texture and taste were just right. Moreover, she liked the cranberries mixed in it. It was a little sour, but it was especially delicious. I want one too. She was anxious. She couldn't reach it unless she climbed onto the chair. However, Yang Yi had moved the chair away to set up the bar. Murphy smiled and handed one to the little girl. She said, You can't eat too much. There will be more delicious food later. If you are full, you will regret it. There's more delicious food? She was eating happily and had a great appetite. However, after hearing her mother's words, she hesitated to finish the cookie. Of course, Yang Yi's snacks were not only cranberry cookies, but also colorful glutinous rice cakes. These glutinous rice cakes were very interesting. The green ones were mixed with green tea powder, the pink ones were strawberry flavored, and the yellow ones were mango flavored. Of course, they were filled with red bean paste. There was also a white one with a purple heart, purple potato filling. Just as Murphy and she were tasting the snacks, Yang Yi came over with his guitar. He even pretended to adjust the microphone and stand. Cough, cough, hey, hey. Murphy had seen the guitar hanging in Yang Yi's study upstairs, the brown beetle. Of course, she knew that this guitar was expensive and that it was left behind by the original landlord. She had always felt that the BB guitar was a pearl thrown into the swamp by Yang Yi. However, she had a better one, so she didn't ask Yang Yi for it. What are you doing? Mo Fei looked at Yang Yi with amusement. She didn't know that Yang Yi knew how to play the guitar. Looking at Yang Yi's clumsy appearance while carrying the guitar, she couldn't help but laugh. Well, I want to sing a song for Shi. Yang Yi said seriously. Okay. She clapped her little hands happily. She was so happy today. Her parents had prepared a birthday party for her, and her father was going to sing. In fact, Shi wasn't as surprised as her mother, because Yang Yi had sung Let's Go in front of Shi, so Shi was looking forward to it. Murphy was also a little curious. She wanted to know what Yang Yi, who didn't know anything about music and didn't care to understand, could sing. Moreover, it was a guitar song. Did he learn how to play the guitar? Murphy thought to herself. Then I'll start. Yang Yi put the microphone back on the stand, and then began to pull the strings of the guitar seriously. 565, 17. A light, simple rhythm sounded. Murphy paid attention to Yang Yi's right hand fingering. It still seemed a little stiff, but this simple repetition with only a few changes in the melody was indeed enough. But the way he pressed the strings with his left hand was not bad. He really did learn it. Chapter 98. Just when Murphy was secretly surprised that Yang Yi really learned how to play the guitar, Yang Yi had already started his singing. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. When the first line was sung, Murphy was a little surprised. There was also a birthday song in this world, but it wasn't sung like this. The expression was a bit implicit, a bit like the kind of, "I wish you good fortune and longevity," in the old Cantonese songs. It wasn't as straightforward as Yang Yi's. However, when she heard the second and third lines, Murphy was happy. This Yang Yi really. Why did he repeat the lyrics? Yes, the birthday song was so simple. There was only one line of lyrics, and then it was simply repeated. There was only a slight change in the tone. However, she liked this kind of simple repetition. Simplicity was in line with the acceptance of her age. For example, "Let It Go." She had learned from her father for a long time, but she could only sing the sentence, "Let it go." Happy birthday. After repeating it a few times, she could clap her small hands and hum with a smile. Yang Yi's interest was piqued. She repeated it once and changed it to English lyrics, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." Murphy was stunned. It was really the first time she heard Yang Yi speak English. Although it was a simple repetition, Yang Yi's pronunciation was very clear. Especially the pronunciation of the theta in the middle of the phonetic symbol. Many people who learned it couldn't pronounce it correctly. He also knows English. Murphy felt that her understanding of Yang Yi had been greatly subverted today. She didn't doubt that Yang Yi didn't learn English. After all, Yang Yi dropped out of high school to join the army after less than a year. At least, he had taken English classes in junior high school, right? But Murphy knew that with Yang Yi's disdainful attitude towards English and foreigners, he might have already forgotten how to speak English after so long. But now Yang Yi was singing an English song, which made Murphy confused. This series of surprises made Murphy forget to investigate who wrote this song. She had never heard it before. However, sometimes women would let their imaginations run wild, which was not necessarily a bad thing. Just like Murphy now, she found the answer for Yang Yi herself. Did he change for me? Naturally, she was too embarrassed to ask this question. However, when she thought about how Yang Yi's personality had become better and better over the past 2 months, Murphy's heart, which was no longer a young girl, started to pound like a little deer. On the other side, Yang Yi had already finished singing. She clapped her little hands happily and cheered, "Nice. Nice." Yang Yi smiled and reached out to high-five his daughter to celebrate. Then he handed the guitar to Murphy. Although Murphy shyly avoided his gaze, Yang Yi did not mind. He smiled and said, "It's your turn." When it was Murphy's turn to sing, Murphy was not reserved. She graciously took the guitar, walked valiantly in front of the microphone, and sat down. "I'll sing a birthday song too." Murphy looked at she and smiled. "This is a song that Mom's mom used to sing on Mom's birthday. Now Mom is going to sing it for she. Murphy's string of "Mom" sounded like a jingle, which made Yang Yi suddenly think of the crosstalk routine in his previous life. A llama came from the east, a mute came from the west, and the llama carried 5 caddies of tarts in his hand. In an instant, it was out of character. "I like listening to Mom's songs." She smiled sweetly. Today was really great. Her parents were all around her, just like the stars surrounding the bright moon. After a beautiful melody, Murphy softly hummed Sad Face P.S. The lyrics below are partially rewritten by Lin Jiying's song, Birthday Present. "Everyone, just look at the lyrics. There's a bouquet of flowers in my heart for my beloved baby. Watered with tears, blooming with smiles, slowly growing up." Yang Yi's ears were very sharp. He looked at Murphy with some surprise. She was playing the guitar and singing with she with a smile. Murphy sang really well, but it was very different from her usual singing. She did not insist on using techniques to exaggerate her emotions. Instead, she truly revealed her warmth and sang very naturally. I'll accompany you through the sunshine and rain. I'll accompany you through the sadness and sweetness. Now, I'll plant it in your heart forever. This kind of warm birthday song was not as straightforward as Yang Yi's singing. Yang Yi even believed that the lyrics were so implicit that she might not be able to understand them. But the melody was very nice. The little girl sat on the chair and smiled foolishly. She shook her head with her mother and clapped her hands to the beat. Everyone has a blessing. Every birthday has a gift. My dearest baby, I'll give you the most beautiful blessing and the best gift. No matter how many wishes you have, no matter how many dreams you have, my gift is my heart, accompanying you as you grow up. At the end of the song, she happily jumped up from the chair. She heard the gift from the beginning to the end, so she cheered and asked, Then where's my birthday present? Yang Yi was still immersed in Murphy's sweet singing. This was a rare warm singing style from Murphy until he saw Murphy take out her gift for she. Wait a minute. You can't open the gift yet. Yang Yi quickly stopped her. Sure enough, Yang Yi saw the disappointment in Murphy's eyes. Yang Yi gave her a look. This is a good bet, and you want to steal it. Murphy turned her head away in a fit of pique. Why? She's face was full of joy. She reached out to take the gift, but was stopped. She asked unhappily, Why can't I open the gift? Because I still want to eat cake. Yang Yi responded quickly. There's still cake. She immediately threw the gift to the back of her mind. Her eyes lit up as she ran to her father and took his hand. Where is it? She wants to eat cake. Dad will bring it over right away. Yang Yi comforted the little girl and then said to Murphy, Murphy, turn off the lights. Can you not turn off the lights? She is scared. The little girl said at once. Murphy nodded fiercely. She was scared too. Yang Yi comforted her helplessly, Not all the lights, just the headlights. These colorful lights are still on. Murphy still shook her head. Forget it, I'll do it. Yang Yi went to the door and turned off the incandescent light. Then, his figure disappeared into the darkness. Although there were colorful lights flashing in front of the bar counter, like the shining stars in the night sky, and it was very beautiful, Mo Fei and Cici had no time to appreciate it. I'm scared. Where's Papa? She squeezed into her mother's arms and asked. Although Murphy was not too scared, she was also looking forward to Yang Yi's appearance. She asked her where her father went, but Murphy really did not know. She did not know where Yang Yi would get the cake, so now she could only wait. Suddenly, a few candlelight flickered in the darkness in front of them. Gradually, under the dim light of the colorful lights, Mo Fei and Cici both saw a big cake being pushed over on a trolley. Chapter 99. P.S. Warning of dog food ahead. Happy birthday to you. Yang Yi hummed his birthday song again and slowly pushed the cake over. It's here, it's here. She was no longer afraid when she saw her father. She cheered and circled around her father, wanting to see what the big cake looked like. Murphy was worried that she would bump into something in the dark, so she quickly pulled her back. Don't run around. Wait for your father to finish decorating. In the middle of the field, surrounded by flashing colored lights, Murphy and she finally saw what the cake looked like. It was indeed a custom-made cake that cost more than 10,000 yuan. The cake was made into the shape of a castle, and it was a castle on a mountain. It was made using the technique of reflection. Chocolate and fruit trees were buried in the cake, setting off the height of the castle. The lonely castle stood alone on the peak of the mountain. Murphy looked at the cake and frowned. What does this mean? Why did you order a cake like this? Murphy felt that a birthday cake shouldn't have such a dark theme. However, she shouted excitedly, Sister Elsa, and Anna, and Snowbow. Only she could understand the meaning of the lonely castle because Yang Yi had drawn a similar picture for her before. He told Shi that when Elsa escaped from the crowd, she lived in a snow castle like this with Snow Bao as her companion. The 4 candles that represented Shi's 4th birthday were placed in very particular positions. 2 of them were placed on the castle, and the swaying candlelight illuminated the figure of Elsa, who was looking at her hometown from the window sill. The blue crystal-like dress told Shi her identity. Although it couldn't be made with a cake, it was just a small wooden doll carved by Yang Yi and then colored by the cake shop chef with food coloring. Similarly, Anna, who was looking at the forest below the castle, was also a little wooden doll. The red cloak also revealed her identity. The other 2 candles were placed on her sleigh. On the other hand, Baby Snow was made entirely out of cream. The cake maker's skills were excellent, and Baby Snow's mischievous expression was vividly portrayed. Yang Yi placed it at the entrance of the castle, just like how it would appear and welcome Anna in the story. It was supposed to be an Easter egg without any candles, but she still noticed it immediately. "Do you like this cake? Dad spent a lot of effort to get people to make it." Yang Yi laughed and picked up the little girl so that she could have a better angle to observe. "I like it. This is Sister Elsa's castle." She was so happy that she didn't know how to express it. Murphy looked at the cake for a while, then looked at Yang Yi and her daughter. She was very confused. Why would they like such a dark cake? Could it be that there was a story behind this that he didn't know? Sister Elsa, Anna. Murphy often heard she mention these names, but she didn't ask. Murphy made up her mind that when she had enough fun and went to bed at night, she would ask Yang Yi about it. "Come on, make a wish first, then blow out the candles. After blowing out the candles, we can eat the cake," Yang Yi said to Shi. The little girl still knew how to make a wish. She quickly hugged the cake with both hands, closed her eyes, and whispered. Yang Yi and Murphy didn't say anything. In this quiet environment, Shi's voice clearly reached their ears. Shi hopes that Papa and Mom can accompany Shi all the time. Shi doesn't want them to not be together. Murphy was stunned for a moment. She subconsciously raised her head and made eye contact with Yang Yi, who was looking over. This time, the 2 didn't avoid each other. They just stood quietly and looked at each other. In the darkness, it was difficult to see each other's expressions and thoughts. However, the candlelight reflected in their eyes was clearly visible. After she made her wish, she blew out the candles, and Yang Yi turned on the incandescent lamp. Under the bright light, such a frozen-themed cake looked even more beautiful. "Don't you want to know what I made a wish?" Shi's nose was smeared with some cream, probably from blowing out the candles. Murphy wiped her nose with a tissue, and the little girl said in a muffled voice, "A wish, it won't come true if you say it out loud," Murphy said intimately as she pinched the little girl's nose. "Then I'd better not say it." She quickly covered her mouth. She didn't know that her parents had already heard her wish. It was impossible for the 3 of them to finish such a big cake. Yang Yi cut a few pieces from the edge and divided them into 3 portions, without touching the castle. Now she cared about the castle the most. She didn't let her father use the knife. She only allowed him to cut the forest below. However, these 3 portions were already enough. Cici was eating the most happily, but she was a small person. She had just eaten some desserts, so she couldn't eat much before she was full. However, her small head was still looking in the direction of the big cake. Yang Yi had never had a strong interest in cake, so he simply ate a few mouthfuls. He saw that Murphy next to him had cut the cream off the cake and only ate the bread below. He smiled and said, "You don't want to eat cream, and you still want to lose weight?" Murphy glared at Yang Yi in annoyance. As a star, she always had to control her figure. Otherwise, how could she not like to eat cream? Cough, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying, later when we go up, I'll get you something to eat. We'll eat together. Yang Yi awkwardly explained. Murphy suddenly stretched out her hand and touched Yang Yi's face. Yang Yi's body stiffened. He didn't understand why Murphy, who had always kept a distance, would suddenly do such an intimate action. But he quickly understood. He reached out his hand and wiped his face. It was the greasy cream. At this moment, Mo Fei giggled and threw a playful glance at Yang Yi, as if to show off. Okay. Yang Yi deliberately raised the plate in his hand. There was still some cake and cream. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to throw it out. He deliberately wanted to scare Murphy. The latter exclaimed and hurriedly ran away. After confirming that Yang Yi didn't pounce on her, she laughed from afar. Murphy's mood today was really good. She even laughed out loud. Perhaps, the amount of laughter today was almost comparable to the number of times she laughed in the past half a year. After fooling around, it was time to open the presents. Yang Yi, where's your present? Murphy held her box. There were beautiful butterfly ribbons on it. She proudly shook it at Yang Yi and said. Yang Yi was already prepared. He took out a long box from behind the bar. Although it didn't have any beautiful decorations, it was a rectangular box like Murphy's. Moreover, it was bigger than Murphy's, by a lot. You cheated. When Mo Fei saw this, she immediately pouted in annoyance. However, she didn't care about the expressions of her parents. She happily ran over and took the box from her parents' hands. Her father's box was slightly heavier. She dragged it to the middle and sat down. These are all my presents. She said happily. Murphy glanced at her daughter. For some reason, she suddenly said to Yang Yi, she is really easy to satisfy. When I was young, I had a lot of presents for my birthday. They were from my family and classmates. They piled up in the house. But she was very happy when she asked for 2. When Yang Yi heard that, he was suddenly stunned. No one knew what he was thinking. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.